Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday show right here at Brother Counsel. Now, last week, we did our first dive into Richard Allen. We had Andrea Burkhart, a great conversation, really some mind-blowing information that she told us, and it just made me desire for further follow-up and conversation on this topic. And as I did a little bit more of a deeper dive into this, it seems that not just Andrea Burkhart was covering this case, but also Bob Motta and Ali Motta were covering this case, and actually maybe even for longer than Andrea was. So we may have some even more insight into everything that was going on pre-trial, during the trial, maybe now after the trial. So it was great to reach out to Bob, and that Bob agreed so graciously to join me. This is going to be our first show together, our first time actually, interacting for more than 10 seconds, because we actually did appear one time on a charity stream where we just were on with 10 other creators, or maybe not even 10, maybe it was a couple, but we were on, we kind of just crossed paths that way. So it's great. It's going to be very exciting for me to have Bob on and Ali on and for the first time and discuss this. Seems like a very, very important case that we really need to learn a lot more about. And it seems that because, the court proceedings and the trial was not live streamed, a lot of the law tubers were you're just left out of it. So Bob was actually in the courtroom, and so was Andrea. So without any further ado, let's bring on Bob. Let's bring on Ali. Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you, Ali, for joining the show today. It's nice to meet you for the first time, and congratulations to the Bears.
No, thanks, Martin. It's great to be here, and I'm thrilled that we're hanging finally. Like, we've been two ships passing in the night, so this is long overdue. And thank you for that. I was at the game, and I think I got home about 1:30. And that was end game, out of stadium, get to our ride service, get home, drive home. So there was no, shenanigans after the game. It was an evening game, and it was a game for the ages. It was an incredible.
Do you have season tickets?
I do.
Oh, so that's how you're able to get those tickets.
Yes.
But he's got him with a group of guys, so it's like he's got one seat, so
yeah.
I got to go with him last weekend because someone else didn't go, but typically, it
was Ali's first game. So Ali this year, who has historically not cared about football at all, not cared about the Bears, other than supporting me and knowing that for whatever reason, as a grown man, that I'm still obsessed with a child's game. But this year,
you're not alone in that.
Yeah, she took it upon herself, and she wasn't a bandwagon jumper. She didn't jump in when the Bears started winning all these. She really kind of this year decided, independent of me, to dig into the game. And for me, it's been wonderful, because to have my best friend engage with me on this thing it's really added to what's been just a glorious season. So
yeah, I mean, it's been a very interesting season. I mean, except obviously all the losses to Detroit, but
yeah, I have to tell you, it didn't hurt us last night.
No, I bet it won't hurt you next week either when you're in the playoffs and we're watching from the golf course.
Oh, and when you sit there. And our rivalry with Green Bay has been one of BTA, belt to butt.
I was about to ask, what does this mean?
For 3 decades. So, for us to win that game in that fashion against that team, the psychology behind it, for us as Chicago fans, it's a real thing, and it was if we would have lost it, the season that had been so unbelievable, because we feel like we finally hired the right coach. We finally feel like in the history of our
from Detroit.
Yeah. I mean, he was going somewhere, he was getting a job somewhere. And I firmly believe that he had looked at Caleb Williams and said, that's a kid that I can mold. And Caleb's just special. He just is. He's got ice in his veins, and he's got the clutch gene that not many quarterbacks do. So it was great.
So before we jump into Richard Allen, which we're going to do obviously, but I wanted to let you gloat a little bit in the Chicago win, because you told me, and you warned me, if they lose, you're not going to be in such a great mood. But so I want to let the other side play out. Do you also follow hockey?
I do.
So I mean, we're all hoping for Connor Bedard to become the next best player in the NHL.
He was well on the way, and then he got the shoulder injury. And his season this year, for the first quarter of the season was unbelievable. I mean, he was like, he had arrived because he had a down year last year in terms of like goal scoring, but this year he was back at it, because we had come from the Kane and Tays era, which was the revival of the Blackhawks, which were really a dead franchise. I mean, it was so much so that, you'd open, back when people actually read newspapers, I'd open the paper up and there would not even be a story written in the sports page about the Hawks because they were that irrelevant, because Bill, where their old owner wouldn't televise the home game. So whatever. But so that golden age of the Hawks was amazing. And then,
and there's a rivalry there between Detroit and Chicago also.
Great rivalry.
Yeah.
Great rivalry. I had gone up to old Joe Louis a couple times back when it existed, and it was what a great old barn that was.
Yeah, no longer. But yeah, I was there like once or twice, but I'm not able to go to the games as much, but I do play a lot of ice hockey. So
you got a lot of kids, Martin. So I don't know when you'd have time to do that, man.
Look, you got to stay sane. The first thing is I got to be a sane father. So that includes figuring out when I'm going to play some ice hockey and get that outlet and then be able to be a decent father and husband.
Yeah.
So let me ask you another question as we're a little bit off topic here, but there was a big film last night that came out, I think, with Karen Reed.
Yeah.
Did either of you see that? Al, you saw that? No.
I was at the game.
You're busy with that.
I had seen the casting, so I had seen a shot of like kind of a promotional shot of the casting, and I thought the casting looked a little off. I don't know. Did you watch? And
I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I didn't watch it either.
And it was just interesting because I think like when it was first cast and they were discussing it, and Alan Jackson was actually on one of these shows. I think Karen Reed was there also. They asked him like, what do you think about this show coming up or this movie, whatever? And he's like, they didn't reach out to us, they didn't ask us, they didn't speak to Karen. It was almost like that they felt a little bit that they were not included in it, and therefore. And I would think that maybe there would be some sort of movement to, on the Karen Reed side, oh, we shouldn't watch it and don't tune in. And, this is not the real film. But it seems like a lot of people watched it and they had a lot of very positive things to say about it online.
I mean, I think if they, in terms of kind of the free Karen Reed movement, I think people are inclined, if they get it right in terms of whoever's creating it, in terms of the storyline, that people are going to watch it. No matter if it's Lifetime, which typically is kind of like B quality viewing. You're not getting cream of the crop actors with Lifetime movies, man. That's just facts, So,
okay.
But I think I'm sure I'll watch it. it.
I mean, it was just pretty. I think I was a little surprised. I would have thought that there would be a lot more, outcry of, oh, we're not going to watch it, and we're, they didn't ask Karen, and they didn't, and they, was not with their permission and whatever. But it seems like some people, where had some positive things to say about it. So let me ask you another question. I like to ask this question before we get into Richard Allen, and that is, you've been a defense attorney for a little while now, have you?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Let me ask you a hypothetical. I don't know if you've been following the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case. Have you been following?
We have.
Oh, okay, fine. So let me just ask you, in your career, have you ever represented a client where the client was out on bond, did not violate bond, and nevertheless the judge revoked the bond for whatever reason?
No.
And that's even like filing motions. We've done motions to modify conditions of bond and like pushed for things that that we wanted, and I've never had a judge attempt to revoke bond at something like that ever. And we have been practicing criminal defense for 22 years.
Yeah, it was
20
yeah, and
years.
Allison gets very upset when I do this, but I was calling it with the whole Kelsey's situation leading up to the hearing where it finally got made right. I think immediately, and my Twitter account will verify it, and my YouTube lives.
Okay, what is
I
it?
didn't understand why Bradel wasn't going in and asking Kelsey, "Can you blow?" You know, it's like if you can comply with the conditions of bond, let's just forget all this. So
he eventually did that, but he waited.
He did. I you know, and it's like I had some questions about the timing of it. I'm like, well, did Kelsey spend an extra month in jail to wait for the SJC opinion to come down? I don't know. I probably would have run in and got my client out, but whatever. She's out. I'm thrilled that she's out because that was a crazy set of circumstances.
Well, I would have imagined, and again, I like to ask that question to all criminal defense attorneys because, you know, I'm still waiting for the criminal defense attorney to tell me that they had a situation like this. I've asked Alan Jackson, I've asked you guys, I've asked Andrea, and I've asked other people that I know in private practice, you know, throughout Michigan and whatever. I think that it could be that what Bradel was a little bit nervous about is going in front of the same judge who, you know, was very happy to throw her away with, you know, not following the law and, you know, unconstitutionally taking away her liberty without due process. And just to say, okay, let's forget the appeal. Now that she could blow, let's take a chance with this judge. And maybe the judge will say, nah, she's not coming out. And then what? You know, so I think he was a little bit nervous to go in front of the same judge who just denied everything, acted completely unreasonably and emotionally and just, you know, against the law, and, you know, take his chance with that as opposed to the appeal. So
yeah, that could be the case. I mean, the only reason that my only pushback on that would be footnote 6. So when the single justice wrote up the opinion, footnote 6 is pretty clear to me. Footnote 6 was like, hey, you know, there's nothing stopping you from going in and doing,
well, you know, asking, you know, filing the motion, but, you know, maybe she'll find some other stupid reason.
It was stronger worded than that. If we pull up footnote 6,
okay.
it was more like, look, I call it like I see it. You know, Tim's a fine lawyer. He's an excellent attorney. You know, we're all rooting for you know, him and Aiden's case to go the right way because the First Amendment ramifications are massive. It's a huge case. I don't know that. I think people kind of get lost in the other parts of Aiden and his personality and his show, and they lose sight of just how incredibly important that case is to our country and to our constitutional rights moving forward. So I'm a big fan of Tim in general, and I think that he'll do an excellent job on that.
And equally pushing for Kelsey Fitzsimmons, who seems to be getting railroaded while her, you know, contribution to society and onset of mental health symptoms after the birth of her child just get ignored. So
yeah, you know, it's so funny that you just mentioned that, Bob, because my last video where I was talking about Mark Bettero's surreply in that motion to disqualify. And, you know, there's all this drama and emotional stuff going on that, you know, I don't care for, but, you know, I just on the filings and everything. And I told everybody, you know, I just let everybody know, like, you know, let's not get lost here in the weeds of all the drama. This is a very important case because it's First Amendment implications. And, you know, you don't have cases like this where journalists are going after for witness intimidation, you know, for what he's doing. And it's very targeted. And, you know, Beto is a great lawyer and I love his writing. So I like to analyze what he's writing.
Me too.
So, but yeah, I mean, like, that's what you say, you know, you just got to focus on the real legal issue here, which is an important one. You know, First Amendment. So
100%. Yeah. We love Mark too. We've had him on the show a bunch of times. And like you said, his legal writing's fun. You know, and there's one of the attorneys for Richard Allen, when we kind of delve into that, is also a fun legal writer, and that was
perfect segue. Perfect.
Yeah. So his I like to read his stuff as well.
Which one?
136 Andrew Baldwin. We had him on. Unbelievably, he hung with me for 6 hours the other night.
I had to dip out in the middle of it. I'm still recovering from shoulder surgery. So I was like, I got to go put on some ice. And then I fell asleep for two and a half hours or something.
It was closer to 3 hours. She fell asleep. I finally got off this live and I go downstairs and Allie's like, we have her set up in this recliner because it's positionally, it's better for her and gives her some comfort because she had 2 torn rotator cuffs and she had the surgery. And then,
oh no, did you fall?
No, it's like an old injury. Bob and I used to do CrossFit and we were in our 40s and it was just, and I think I've just been dealing with it, and then everything kind of just snapped at one time. I don't know.
Oh boy.
But that surgery is for real. I mean, anybody who's had.
Well, I mean, I've had clients with, torn rotator cuffs.
Yeah.
I do mostly civil work. I do personal injury, but I do some criminal defense, but mostly personal injury.
Yeah.
So I've seen rotator cuff injuries, and they're serious, especially when it has to go for surgery.
Oh, and my wife has a very, very high pain threshold. Her tolerance for pain is.
Well, she's married to you.
Exactly.
Ah!
Exactly. And when I walked in after the recovery period and I saw the look on her face, I was like, wow. Because she's just got a very high threshold for pain. And I had never seen her in that type of agony. And man, it was, so she's powering through. Like we're at almost week 8. So
wow. So you probably, are you doing physical therapy? You're probably doing all
Yeah.
the, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's actually starting to feel like it's getting better. Like the pain's still there from the physical therapy, but it's a different kind of pain. I can tell it's more muscular, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, I wish you a speedy recovery with that.
Thank
and
you.
A full recovery. So tell me about the 6-hour stream you had with Baldwin. I even know about that.
So
was the stream or just a conversation with him? Like what was that?
Yeah, no, it was just a full stream.
Oh, really?
So the way that I kind of set it up, and Allie kind of felt hoodwinked because I didn't really tell her the breadth of which we were going to be doing this thing. So because I've
got to watch this. I mean,
it's very good, and it's chock full of information. So what we ended up doing, because there was new information in terms of a recording that was released, because in this case, as you said when we were off air, this was really tried in the shadows. It was tried in the darkness, and and that includes, and I know that you and Andrea got into it quite a bit, because Andrea put in a pretty intense fight to try to get access to the evidence in that case. I mean, she filed a petition in the middle of trial trying to get access, and my wife had come to one of the hearings. No, we were in the middle of trial, actually. This is it. So this is a trial. This is in Delphi. Allie goes in to stand in line because the judge was saying, okay, I'm allowing only legacy media, only real media to view the evidence after each day of court. So Allie gets in line.
Well, Andrea and I had talked about it though beforehand. Remember that dinner that we went, or whatever we did? It was Lee, you, me, and Andrea, and we were talking about it. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go in and just see what happens.
Yeah, my wife fears no man. So she gets up there, and then some reporter, like I think it was a local reporter from Carroll County, starts outing Allie, like yelling at her. So like Judge Gull actually addresses Allie and said, well, you tell the story. You were there. So
yeah, Judge Gull addresses me, and I said, I am not mainstream media, but I am a member of the public. And and she shut me down and said something, and then I tried to say something else. Like I'm not one to be shut down. Even when I am the lawyer, I probably push things a little too far. So then I was like, well, Your Honor, I'd like to know when the public is going to be. And I said something about the Constitution and da-da-da-da. And then
and that's it. You mentioned the Constitution, like in Kelsey's case. That's the last straw.
Yeah, well, it's like telling a cop I know my rights.
Yeah,
same thing. It's the same thing. Yeah, they don't like that.
Ultimately, she booted me out.
Yeah,
right. So, it's funny because what is the actual legal definition for mainstream media? What is that?
I didn't even come in like I'm an attorney who does report on these, so I am defined as media. I'm just like, well, what about the general public? What about the open courtroom? What's going on here?
Right.
Yeah, it was to me.
So why didn't you just represent yourself as mainstream media and say, yeah, I am mainstream media. I have a channel. I don't know how many thousand people watch me.
I think if we were to poll Americans, that a vast majority of Americans get their news from YouTube. I can look at local news channels and their YouTube channels, because now they've realized, okay, this is the way that it's going, and it's never going back the other way. So what we do in terms of the internet, that is us moving forward, and it's only so. I mean, we have a bigger audience than most local news channels in terms of their YouTube channel. So I would argue that we are mainstream,
Right?
and
All
I
of
mean,
us, right?
all of us, and we're very fact driven. I try to be as accurate with the facts. We're much like you, Martin, on our channel. We read the pleadings. Like that's what we do. When I started the channel, I'm like, I'm going to read all the pleadings.
And I'm like, that's going to bore the shit out of people. Sorry,
Yeah,
Bob told me to watch my
I know.
language.
They love it. They love it. Yeah.
But the people pushed back and like, no, Allie, let Bob read. So I was like, all right,
Yeah,
Bob's gonna read.
I'm gonna read them. We're gonna
But
read
no,
them all.
so this, and I think I had like a section of the Indiana Constitution lined up for just sticking with the public, and that's why I did that. And I knew I wasn't given a lot of time to speak, so I was trying to get out what I could. But turning back to the 6 hour live, it was Bob started to say there was this new audio recording that came out of a professor who the police consulted with when after they initially set eyes on this crime scene and thought, this really looks weird. There is something ritualistic about this. I'm going to consult someone who knows about Norse paganism and knows about runes. So it was an interview with this guy. Now, much of what he said was in various pleadings that, so over the course of following this, we have all heard it. But to hear the way this cop tried to redirect the conversation and tried to steer it and change what this guy was saying to all cover up lies that the police, the prosecutor have been telling throughout this about the existence of this professor, who the professor is, and what the hell he said to them. So all of those things. So the live was called, go ahead, babe, you named it.
If he's the guy, why lie?
So they went through
it's pretty accurate, Martin.
They went through all the pleadings leading up to showing sort of how this lie did exist and all the times the lies were told and how much they tried to hide the ball, change the narrative, and build up to playing the ultimate recording.
And so so just to give you, so what I ended up doing, there were multiple motions that were filed because the whole thing that went on with this Professor Turco, who was a professor at Purdue, was a game of hide the ball by the state. There were emails that were sent, and this was all coming out when I was doing, and I was, just so we're clear, I was the only attorney that was covering 2 years of Delphi pre-trial. So like I was at every hearing but one, but in that day she didn't let the public in anyway, so I didn't miss anything, and we were at Jazz Fest. So I was like, I'm not flying back. Like, I'm not going for this here. So at any rate, there were multiple motions because when Baldwin filed the original Frank's memo, which I know you guys got into a bit, which is that 136-page opus. And he just kept getting the sense that, number one, that she wasn't reading the thing. And number two, things kept popping up. The things kept arising during the course of litigation where he kept leaning into it, and he doubled down, he tripled down, quadrupled down, ultimately by filing, at the end of the day, 4 Frank's memos, always hearkening her back, her being Judge Gull, to go look, please read the Frank's memo, please. So one of the things that came out was this game of hide the ball with this professor, and it got to the point where.
And just to be clear for everybody, Frank's memo is when a police officer or someone's lying on an affidavit, so you want to suppress the evidence, right?
Correct.
Okay,
correct, or lying by omission, whatever. Yeah. You're coming in and not putting out the straight dope to the
judge is not getting the true
right
story.
because the police officers on their affidavits and everything, they're fudging the truth, so
yes, okay, exactly. Right. So ultimately, when this new recording dropped, like Allie said, tone, tenor, everything, to hear how the cop was engaging with this professor and the timing of it in terms of when that happened, when they already had Turco in stone from when this recording happened to when Andy, because in Indiana, they have the ability to depose witnesses prior to trial. We cannot do that in Illinois. It's such a huge advantage to have.
Huge. And some jurisdictions you're able to do that, not just Indiana, by the way.
I know, and we are in a situation in Illinois where we go in blind with a witness. We don't have the opportunity. I mean, on the rare occasion, it's scary.
We try. We are aggressive, so we try to interview all the witnesses, and the higher profile the case, the more important the case is, the more the witnesses have all been told. The lawyers might try to talk to you. You don't have to talk to them,
right?
And then they don't. Right. So,
I mean, typically
you got to be careful, by the way, with that, Allie, because some people are going to say, "Well, is one case more important than the other case?"
I mean, in the eyes of the prosecution.
That happened in Karen Reed.
Right.
Yeah. There's an old lawyer that once told me there are no small cases. There's just small lawyers. So, and he also said, never trust a lawyer with dirty shoes. Like those two pieces of sage advice, I think, are actually true. I've always found that to really kind of stick with me. So ultimately for that marathon live, I ended up going through the 5 different motions that were filed. Well, actually the 3 motions in the response by the state. So because we really wanted to highlight.
I'm going to cut you off, but just to be clear, this is all the way in the beginning. One of the first motions one of the early pretrial motions that were filed regarding these affidavits that were filed by this police officer referring to conversations he had with this professor about this Odinism or something to do with that, cult or whatever.
The Odins,
whatever
paganism.
Yeah, paganism. Is that what this is all about?
So no, it was actually the Franks memo was filed in order to fight the search warrant on Richard Allen's home.
But in there, they were trying to lay out, because for Franks, like you said, you have to show that the police lied, and they were trying to show that any misstatement of fact, omission was intentional.
Unknown caller.
All right, babe. And that they were doing it with the intent to mislead the court. So a lot of what the defense was doing was, as they were amending this, lining up other times that the prosecution or the police misled the court, lied to the defense, said something in a pleading that wasn't true. So that's why this whole and plus just the fact of leaving out all of these details. And it started with, because they didn't know about the professor. It wasn't in the discovery. There was no mention of it. They would have never learned of it. What they did know of.
When did they learn of it?
They learned of it when they deposed one of the cops, I think was it August of 2023, babe, or 2024?
Sounds right.
Whatever.
Which one, 23 or 24?
23.
What had to be 23, right? Yeah.
Well, by the time that they
sat on that information, straight out Brady violation, obviously. So they sat on that information, what, for how many years? Like, when was the trial again?
Well, the state would argue that it wasn't Brady because they claimed that they had exhausted that vein of the investigation with the Odinist Norse paganism, and that they rejected it. They felt that one of the guys.
But that doesn't mean that they don't turn that over. That's for me to decide.
You're preaching to the choir, baby. You're preaching to the choir. But yeah, ultimately, by the time that the Franks memo was filed, they knew about this professor. They didn't know
this amendment. Yeah.
Well, the original Franks. They knew.
Really?
Yes, they knew of a professor, but they didn't know his identity. So that's when this thing became a thing. So Baldwin contacts Nick McClelland, who is the prosecuting attorney, and says, "Hey, we'd really like to depose this Purdue professor. Could you find out who he is?" And that's when the series of lies and chicanery takes place, wherein McClelland's contacting Holman, allegedly, who is the lead investigator for Unified Command, which was the kind of the task force that was put together to investigate the Delphi murders, and McClelland sending Andy Baldwin back email saying, "Oh yeah, we're really trying to locate this guy, but nobody seems to know his name.
Him or her. No one knows who he or she is. They didn't even know if
How about
it's
the
a
cop
man
who
or a
spoke
woman.
to him?
Oh no, they forgot.
No,
they don't know who the police. Well, I thought there was a report. There was some.
But Andy didn't have that report yet. The only report he had was of the police officers who a totally separate line of investigation. completely separate line of investigation of them just going out, interviewing people and following up on leads them to a group of people who are Odinists, who practice Odinism, who know about runes and are making admissions that they were there. So he's got this report of interviews of people that they're asking them all these questions about Odinism. There's talks about, that they perform these rituals in the woods and, they're a brotherhood. So they get that information and they're like, oh, what's going on here? So then that leads them to ask questions that in the deposition, they realized they consulted with a professor. So, and from there, they kept trying.
The police?
The police, yeah.
So where is that record? Where is that report? Where is that anything?
We still do not. So it was a Fed from BAU initially. The first people to go talk to Turco, who is now we know the identity of the professor. So Jeffrey Turco was a cop and a Fed. So those two went and spoke to him. As far as I know, no one has ever seen that report, or this report was not memorialized in any type of way. So that particular thing in the world, we don't know if it exists or not, but it's kind of deeper. So these three cops, and it's Click, Ferenczi, and Murphy. It's not a law firm. They're just three longtime cops who had really dug into kind of the Norse paganism concept, the Odin concept. And as Ali said, it was tipped in. Like a lot of people after the homicides took place, tipped in certain individuals that caused them to be interviewed in the first 72 hours, which we're going to get to, which I don't know. I like because I tried to listen to much of Andrea, and I also tried to read the transcript. So I wasn't being duplicative of the information, but ultimately, these guys are interviewed, these people of interest that a lot of people were tipping in. So these three cops conduct a 2-year investigation into that. When Richard Allen's arrested, okay, one of the cops, Todd Click, consults an attorney because he sees the story. He tries to call McClelland, again, the prosecuting attorney, and say, hey, did you get that 12-page report that I sent to you about our investigation?
And again, I just want to clarify that 12-page report is the report of all the people they interviewed that lead to this Odinist line, but don't have nothing to do with the professor and don't involve the professor. But go ahead, babe.
Yeah, so there's different reports. There is an Odin report, but the Click, Ferenczi, and Murphy report is a different thing. That is it's more than just the witnesses. They really dug in a lot of different ways. They did a lot of background in terms of trying to have an understanding of Norse paganism and how it was kind of bastardized by white supremacists, and they use this thing. And so they get into a lot of that. So at any rate, Click felt so strongly about the particular suspects that they had identified that he contacts McClelland, says, did you get my report? McClelland's like, I don't know. Let me look around for it. Click then says, you know what? I don't know what to do with this. I'm like a cop. I've got this unified command, which is this cabal of cops that is like just controlling this investigation. And you've got these other three cops who are all 20+ year cops. I mean, Ferenczi was on the FBI terrorism task force. These are all legitimate cops. These aren't Barney Fife guys walking around. These are all cops. So he ends up consulting. Todd Click consults an attorney and says, what should I do with this? And he says, well, I think you should write a letter and send it certified so that you know that he's received your report, because Todd Click didn't understand.
Well, what about reaching out to the defense counsel?
That's what I'm saying.
They ultimately did.
Okay. Yeah,
I mean, as soon as defense counsel became aware of this letter that was sent by Todd Click to Nick McClelland, which was not turned over in discovery. Like, this is the thing where they start finding out things through other witnesses, through deps. And they're like, oh, really? There was a letter that you sent to Nick McClelland. Oh, really? There was a report that you. So all these things.
Oh, wait, babe. Let me correct you on that one point, because Andy made it the other day. When the deposition for somebody was scheduled, the day before that, because they knew that they're about to find it out, I think is when McClelland turned over the report. Is that not right?
Wait, when Who found out about what?
The click report and the letter click sent, like when they were about to depose the next person.
No, they had found the click report before they knew about the fact that Click had sent
that
the letter. Because Todd told Andy and the defense team.
So Bob is accurate. Sorry. So they turned that over right before deposition, or they mentioned something about that, but the letter they kept.
Okay, so you got this click report that's 2 years of investigation of these 20-year cops about why they believe that the suspects that are associated with Odinism are the suspects that they should be looking at and not Richard Allen. Was that essentially the gist of it?
I mean, it was stronger than that. It was like, we have better evidence. These are stronger suspects. We don't understand, based on what we're seeing in this probable cause affidavit that you put together, why you arrested this man in lieu of the people that we supplied to you, because they're better suspects, but the state has just died on this hill that they couldn't put these guys at the scene according to what their timeline is. I mean, and I tell people on our show all the time, I'm like, our number one, attack the timeline. Just because the states come up with a theory as to when they think, or when they determine how they think something went down, that's only a theory. They weren't there. They don't know. You know what I mean?
Unless they have some solid data, showing that there's phone data or whatever.
Or video evidence, any kind of direct evidence. Yeah, I mean, in that situation, it's a different story. But when you're going strictly on circumstantial evidence, and they've created a theory based on that evidence, then you attack the timeline. There is no proof of when the girls were killed that day. I think we have an idea of when they were abducted based on the short video that kind of made the case so infamous. The bridge guy video.
Bridge guy video.
And in terms of that phone data that came out, you have an idea. But I mean, the defense, and one of the things that I've always found to be connective tissue between Karen Reed, when I've been trying to draw all the passionate, incredible people that have been a part of that movement over to this movement, is that in these two cases, which is very, very unusual, you don't typically, as a defense attorney, reveal what your trial strategy is going to be, what your theory of the case is. It's the one thing that we can hold close to the vest. It's the one advantage that we have over the state. We don't have to tell them what our theory is leading up to trial. And both Karen Reed, with the motion to dismiss that was filed early on, that got everybody onto that case, that when Aiden read it, his mind exploded. And in the Delphi case, it was the Franks memo. So in those two cases, you had the defense on both of those cases completely laying out their theory of the case. And in both cases, they incorporated third-party culprits. And they were so compelling, both of these documents, that is what created these battling sides. You had people that read the motion to dismiss that was prepared by Karen's team and David and Alan when they put that thing together. And you're like, wow, this thing has legs. This is insane. So when people started hearing about it, that's when you saw this massive divide in social media and in the public, where there's people like, well, that's crazy. Oh yeah, it's a 50 cop conspiracy. And it was the same thing over in Delphi, because you had, oh yeah, it's a bunch of Vikings running around killing. So it's like you had these two, but the people were like, okay, if you're going to look at it more thoroughly, if you're going to kind of dismiss the blanket dismissal of it and actually read what's in the document, you're going to see that this thing has legs. So it created these just two warring camps in both of these cases, because they were so similar. And like you said, Martin, the fact that the Delphi case was tried in the dark, in the sense that nothing was streamed, really hurt that case in terms of getting eyes on it. That's
what I'm finding about all this stuff now. And I kept hearing a little bit, and it's funny because there was like one filing or two filings I got my hands on, which made me, just raise my eyebrow about this judge, because when the judge tried to throw the Baldwin and Bozzi off the case, because she found that they were grossly negligent because some old employee snuck in and took some pictures, of the evidence, and somehow that means that they're grossly negligent and they can't be trusted to uphold, his Sixth Amendment rights.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we have a problem here.
Yeah.
And like this is going to be, and I think even made some mentions in that video back then, like this is going to be, if this judge and these lawyers are on the case, this is going to make some really, really tension filled moments in court, and you're going to be able to cut it with a knife. You know, it's going to be so full in there. So that's what just like I was like, okay. And then I heard that they're not streaming it, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going back down to Indiana to watch this. So you know, I just put it on my back burner. I say, okay, like if I hear some information, maybe I'll look into it. But you know, I can't see what's going on, so I can't, you know, intelligently talk about it. And I don't like to rely on like, you know, mainstream media or even other people in the courtroom saying, oh, this is what happened and this is how the judge said it. You know, nuance is important to me. I have to see how the judge responds. I have to, you know, see the arguments myself. So that's why I felt like I can't really cover the case well.
Yeah.
But now that I'm, and there is a channel, by the way, that Andrea told me about. I think it's been run by I think Sleuthy or whatever. Sleuthy is the
there's Sleuthy Goosey, who is
Sleuthy Goosey and somebody else.
All eyes on Delphi.
Yeah, and they're putting together this transcript, and they're creating the AI voices so that you can actually now listen to the trial. You know, you can't watch it, but you can listen at least and see how the arguments were made and see how the trial went down. Although I'm a little bit nervous, and I really want to hear that trial and you know, watch. Maybe I'll stream it for my audience, but I'm a little bit nervous that by the time trial came, all the pretrial rulings made the trial just, you know, when you hear it, you're gonna be like, okay, now I understand why the jury found guilty.
That's why
exactly.
I tell people you have to go back and watch our coverage. We were the only, like, we covered every single, we read from beginning to end every single pleading that was filed in the case. You cannot watch the trial. And just to be clear, that's our dear friend Teresa with Criminality. That's her channel. There
you go. So yeah, everybody go look at Criminality, go subscribe. You know, they're doing great work, especially on the Richard Allen.
They're doing amazing work. Teresa and Nicole or Sleuthy have fought so hard to get the documents, to get the transcripts. I mean, you talk about fundraisers. Teresa, whose channel again is Criminality, she, you know, had fundraisers to raise the money to order the transcripts, which were, you know, like over $4 or $5 grand. And
wow.
You know, she raised the capital, and then they turn around and they release the transcripts for free. But it didn't matter. She put in the work and she did everything that they could, and they've just spent a huge amount of time. But to understand this case, it goes exactly to your point. I keep telling people, because Andrea is an amazingly fast writer. So like, we're sitting in court and you had lawyer Lee, myself, and Andrea all trying to write down every single word, because like, we were literally the eyes and ears, and we were attorneys. So we understood what was going on in that courtroom much better than, say, a straight up reporter. So like, we're all doing our very, very best to write down every single word to actually transcribe the trial. Andrea did an incredible job. Like, in terms of like, now that the transcripts are out, we can all just see what was like verbatim said, but Andrea was damn close to being verbatim, because she's a machine. Like, Andrea was typically sitting behind me, and I would be 3 questions behind because I don't write that fast. And I'd turn around and be like, Andrea, what was the last question? And she'd like tell me the entire question, the entire answer. She's like, her note taking was off the charts, amazing.
And she's got a great memory, and she's
got a great legal mind.
Smart as right, exactly.
Yeah,
great legal mind.
It's funny because I when I had her on, I was like, you know, Andrea is just smart as a whip.
Yep.
She's just, I said, yeah, I've told my channel this, like, you know, like from the law tube community that I've already got to know a little bit and hear and listen to and go on shows together with. I said, you know, so far, if you had to ask me who would I want to co-counsel on a case with, it would be Andrea Burkhardt.
Yeah, she's an amazing lawyer. Yeah, well, if you got Andrea and Allie, you'd have one heck of a team.
All right,
yeah,
sounds good.
Yeah, I think you'll see. We have plenty of people from our show that are in your chat. I think they'll tell you those two. Like, I've made it so that
I'm just meeting you.
Allie. Yeah, I've had it so that Allie and Andrea like do lives together, and I just don't even come on, because it's like, I just want it to be a power woman movement right there, and just let these 2 brilliant female attorneys just blow people's minds. But yeah, man,
I wanted to ask you this question. So let me ask you, Bob. So if I just listen to the trial beginning to end, am I going to understand the verdict that it was guilty, or am I going to still say, you know, it could have come back as hung, or could have come back as not guilty?
No, I mean, to me, I think just on its face, if you're to forget that a pretrial proceedings happened and
I
just
mean,
pretend
everything.
like it was in fact, if you look at, to me, they didn't meet the burden
Right.
because that's all they were left with.
You're gonna understand a hell of a lot more, but I agree with Bob. You're still gonna be like, this sounded like reasonable doubt to me.
Well, at the end of the day, they had an unspent casing and they had coerced confessions. That's the bottom line. They had an unspent casing that was never, it was ejected. It wasn't fired through the
Yeah, but
body.
that unspent case, and let me just get to this question because it's been up there. So let me just ask you this before we move on, get on to the unspent casing. Bob, please explain dirty shoes analogy. Male court
I
reference from pre-sneakers with suits era.
Yeah, so this obviously predates like that. So I think if you get down to the brass tacks of it, it's a detail thing. You know, that if you've got a lawyer that's got dirty shoes, they're wearing an impeccable suit, but they've got dirty shoes, it probably questions their attention to detail. I think is what it gets to. I didn't delve in terms of what that might mean with the old lawyer, but that's what I take from it. Like I'm assuming they're asking the question, don't never
Right.
trust a lawyer with dirty shoes. It goes down to detail. I mean, you want attorneys to be detail oriented. It's very, very important, as you know, Martin.
Yeah.
I think that's where it
No, I mean the devils are in the details. I it's funny because I had a case. I'm sure we all have cases like this. I'm just gonna, but where you literally win on one detail. Like there's something that you caught, the other side didn't catch. You're able to highlight that to the jury. They have no answer, and you win.
Yep.
And that goes back to what Bob was kind of saying before about it's our practice, even in civil law as well, to the extent that you can. I mean, the details are all there for people to find and see. But if you've got that detail, you just keep it in your back pocket until you can use it. And that was that difference he was talking to about in the Karen Reed case and the Richard Allen case, where they just put all the details, out. There were definitely some holdbacks, especially in both cases, but in Karen Reed, where you were like, boom, at trial, but the general,
I mean, there were the same type of bombshell things that came out they're completely different fact scenarios, but in terms of how these cases went down, they're very, very similar. But I know that Andrea was very clear about this, and I've been telling people for months. I'm like, you thought Bev was bad. She was nothing. Like Judge Gull was a whole different level of awful. I've never seen a judge in a case of that magnitude handle the case the way that she did. It was unbelievable. Like I keep saying, I'm going to make this t-shirt. Like her orders typically were denied without hearing. That is what she said over and over and over and over again. And beyond that, she'd make no findings of fact. She'd give no rationale. She'd provide no law as to the basis of her decision. So she'd just be making these kind of bald assertion rulings without giving any kind of information. And I love the fact that you're getting involved with it now, because as you may or may not know, the appellate briefs, the Allen's brief just dropped. So now we're in the process of waiting for the response from the state. And this thing's it's just getting started.
Publicly, I mean, is it like on some sort of website I can access, but just for myself?
Oh yeah, like again, I know Andrea had mentioned All Eyes on Delphi and both Sleuthy Goosey. They have Google Drives that they post on Twitter. If you're not following them, you should be following them.
I am.
Yeah, they've got like both of them
seeking justice
and seeking justice as well. Of course, Tracy's our girl. She's one of our mods. But in terms of just kind of a repository for Delphi documents specifically, All Eyes and Sleuthy.
So is everything in the? I mean, I'm assuming everything's in the appeal brief. I mean,
I mean, there's stuff that's not in that appeal brief. For example, when we keep saying that there's somebody who, well, some of it, I guess they had to pick their battles, but we talk about these people who confessed throughout this and the investigation into the Odinism angle, and you've got Elvis Fields who confessed. He told the police, if my spit is on the girls, but I can explain it. Right. And his,
am I good?
Right. And I
All
think
right, that's all we need.
and there was someone else, like his sister, a wife, a girl. Who was it that he talked to, babe, that he said
his
right.
sister, he confessed to his sister. His sister then saw fit to call law enforcement. Law enforcement hauled her in and gave her a polygraph, not as to whether or not she's lying, but whether or not she's being truthful about what her brother said to her. And they found that she was being truthful, that her brother did say that to her. And, it's like you kept hearing this thing from Gull about that there was no nexus, there was no connection, that they couldn't make this nexus for the third party culprits that would be necessary in order for them to bring it up at trial. I'm like, they have a confession. What are you talking about? Like
not just one.
That they had multiple confessions, but those were different confessions from different people. Right. So because they're in this case, because remember,
weren't there also connections to Odinism with those people?
What
was there was connection with Odinism with Elvis or
Elvis? Yes,
Brad Holder, Patrick.
He's direct. Right.
So that's connections between the individuals.
Yeah, I mean the fact that that Holder's son dated the victim.
Yeah.
To me, that's like a huge, nexus.
Is that a nexus?
Seems like a nexus. I don't know. Call me crazy, but that seems like quite a nexus.
And then what came out in one of our last lives, and I think Andy was on this one too, the text messages so they came to the son's school and pulled him out of class.
Okay, so we're just jumping ahead. Just to set the stage a little bit. You said Holder, you said an old boyfriend. Just step back a bit and just explain this a bit, so we can understand where you're going with this.
Yeah, you do that part, babe.
Okay, so one of the main guys, one of the primary third-party culprits, and if you're thinking Karen Reed, think of the house party people and Karen Reed,
the house defendants.
The house defendants. So these guys are this crew of individuals that all seem to practice some form of Norse paganism. Okay, which, if you kind of Google it, because I had never heard of it, I obviously had watched the Vikings show. I'm like, these are probably a bunch of guys that thought Vikings was a really cool show and just wanted to emulate some of it. So, but at any rate, what happens with Brad Holder and why he's tipped in almost immediately is that on his Facebook, he just had some incredibly bizarre and seemingly very coincidental posts on his Facebook of runes. So he had a tattoo on his hand of a rune that appears to almost be identical to one of the runes that were found on one of the girls. But beyond that,
so again, a rune is just some sort of symbol or shape.
Yeah, it's like a Germanic script. It's kind of a shape. It's symbolic. It's an alphabet letter, essentially.
This one happens to be an asterisk, right? The one on his.
Yeah. But beyond that, he also, so the night of the homicides, at least when they think that it took place, he's got this weird post that he's at wherever his gym was. I can't remember if it's Anytime Fitness. It's one of the chain gyms. It's 2:30 in the morning, and he's in here. He's like, I'm in here. He's like, my adrenaline's never been higher in my entire life. It's just a weird post to have up. It's strange. But probably the most disturbing video that he posted within. And
you sure it wasn't 2:27 a.m.?
It was, yeah, right. So, wouldn't that be ironic? So ultimately the post that was the most disturbing was that he posted this video that was a mimicking of two girls dead in the forest. Now, have an understanding about the investigation in Delphi. They were incredibly close-lipped.
We didn't even know how the kids were
right.
Like
Right. No one knew how they were killed. They didn't know if it was gunshots. Nothing was released about this crime. So he posts this thing on his Facebook, which at some point he pulled down. Somebody in another state, which the defense hunted down, had screenshotted it and had a copy of this video and a picture also that was, I think he had the picture. Or I don't know if he had the video. There's a lot with this case, Martin. There is a ton involved. We could probably have a 15-hour live and still just be scratching the surface. So at any rate, You've got Holder, who posts this alarming video that is disturbingly close to this crime scene with these two girls that no one knows. The public does not know. It seems like the kind of thing that only the killer would know. So he becomes suspect number one, especially to Ferenczi, Click, and Murphy, those three cops that continued the investigation, and also to the defense. Because remember, the backstory on this, unlike Karen, where John O'Keefe, rest in peace, we know when he died, at least at some point. We don't know how he died, but we know that he died on that day. And we know that he was supposed to be in that house. With Delphi, this thing went cold for 5 years. Okay, there's a 5-year gap. There's tens of thousands, like I think Sleuthy's probably in chat, 15,000 tips came in on that case over that time. And so one
of the tips was Richard Allen himself, right?
No, that's not a tip. That wasn't even a tip. He went in. Cops were just asking for people to come in that were out on the trail to give him.
No, he called in himself, right? Okay.
He called in, and then they drove over to the police station. Like, I want to be clear on this, on how this went down, because like with Karen Reed, with the warring factions, there's a lot of misinformation that's out there about in terms of how this went down when he volunteered the information that he was out on the bridge that day. So he ends up calling. They say, come down. Him and Kathy go down physically to the police station. There's no one there that he can speak to. They're like, we'll get back to you. Leave us your phone number. He leaves his phone number. He's out one day, like within that day or maybe the following day, but it's all very close in time to when the girls are discovered. So I'm talking within a day to 36 hours. So he gets a call from this resource officer named Dan Doolin. Dan Doolin's like, hey, I know you came in and you wanted to give a statement and tell us about what you saw out at the bridge and when you were out there and give us all the information. He says, yeah. He says, well, I'm out running errands. Okay, so can you just meet me? Like where are you at? And Doolin's like, well, I'm here. He's like, just meet me at this market or whatever in the parking lot, and then I'll give you my statement. So he goes, he meets him, because like the people on the other side of it have been trying to frame it like he was afraid to have them come over to his house, which is all just completely non-factual. It's not what happened. The guy was out.
I see you had a few words that you passed.
Yeah,
he told me. He reminded me, we're keeping it clean.
We're keeping it clean on Martin's channel. So I'm like, look. So he provides his photo information. He pulls out his battery, lets him get the IMED. So he gives them everything, and he gives this statement. Doolin doesn't record it for whatever reason. You'd figure like in this, and it's all just symptomatic of what this investigation was or lack thereof. And again, another one of the similarities.
So all the people that are saying that he was scared, he went to the police station first.
Yeah.
He went there. He went to the police station, so he's not scared of the police
physically. Kim and Kathy physically walked into the police station.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to say he didn't want them at his house, but the guy wasn't home and he was making himself immediately available, so he was out on the road. And then I think the other thing you were going to say that they do is the time. Is that where you were headed, babe?
Well, yeah. Well, I was headed there because of the fact that ultimately Doolin doesn't record that conversation, and we're left to having his handwritten notes, which as well as I do. I have no idea when those notes were written in conjunction with when the interview happened. Was it a week later? Was it a month later? Was it that day? I don't know. That's the thing with cop reports, that people don't like if they don't record the interview and they've taken poorly written notes that are leaving out details, you're left with whatever that cop's memory is. It's not best practice, right? I mean, that's not what we want to be trying people on in this country, is some cop's memory who is a resource officer, who's not a detective. He's a guy who is out in the local parks and trails and making sure that, things are, or he's working in a school, whatever he was doing. He's not a detective.
So he meets him in this parking lot. He gives him a statement.
Yep.
And then when after that does he actually go in for an interview? The one that I just saw.
That's 5 years later after he's arrested.
Oh, because they lost this tip or something because they put it under the wrong name.
Well, that's their story. Their
Right.
story is
Yeah, that's their
lost the
story.
tip, right?
Or right before an election, they needed to revisit the tips and find one that worked, and that's what they said. But in his initial statement, he says he was there between. What are the times, babe?
But
well, there's a range. So the time changes in the 5 years. So there's either between 12 and 1:30 or from 1:30 and 3.
And I always interpreted that since the jump as I was there sometime between, not I was there from 1:30 to 3:30. I was there sometime around, but they make that like it was a.
Well, it was that he was lying, that he was changing his story after he, figured out that they were onto him. But at that point in time, if you think about it realistically, if you just think about it, not in terms of like we're watching a TV show, but apply it to real life, I could not tell you what I had to eat last Tuesday. If you asked me, and I really tried to think and I tried to put some context clues together, I could not tell you where I was at. If we're bringing it to a day of significance for the fact that there was these double homicides took place, that's one thing. But if you're not the person who committed the crime and 5 years passes and you really haven't been thinking, if you're the person that committed the crime, you're sitting there probably thinking about it all the time, right? If you're not the person who committed the crime and 5 years elapses and you continue to work at the same CVS that you were working at the time of the crime, you stay at the same home that you've lived at. You don't leave town. You don't get rid of the clothing that they're claiming he was wearing. You don't get rid of the weapon. You keep all this stuff. So
the weapon, here's the other thing. The weapon she wasn't shot, which I learned.
Right.
Which I learned a lot, within the middle of the stream, man, just talking about the bullet. We're talking about the bullet and how, the science was so, suspect. And then I was like, and then I was like, oh, so she was shot or something? And she's like, no, she wasn't shot. I'm like, so what does the bullet have to do with all this?
Yeah. So the bullet was found, 36 inches to 2 feet away from in between the girls that in this, area. And it's an unspent casing, which means that it was racked out. There was just ejected.
Right.
And fired through.
And they compared it with ones that were fired, right?
Correct.
Right. Only after they couldn't find a match by just doing that.
How does that even that can't even come in as evidence?
It's apples and oranges.
It's literally apples and oranges.
Literally apples and oranges.
Let's ask Judge Gold. Hey, Judge Gold, how come you found no issue with this evidence?
They weren't allowed to bring in their own expert, right?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Not only does she let in apples and oranges, she doesn't allow them to explain exactly how appley and orangey they are.
Let's be clear. They did put on a tool marking guy, but she didn't allow, which was the most important witness, was the metallurgist. So the metallurgist was going to be the one that was going to explain how pressure, in terms of the fact that she was only able to make a significant agreement with the fact that she fired it, that the pressure that's involved when the gunpowder explodes and forces the projectile out changes things and how metal responds to pressure. So that was a critical witness in terms of being able to rebut, because they put on a trust me bro witness. It was typical Hank Brennan, Ipsy Dixit, trust me bro, I don't really need an expert. And the expert that I put on is not going to give you any science behind it. They're just going to say, trust me, I know my stuff. So that was Melissa Oberg.
She's never gotten it wrong.
She's never gotten it wrong, Martin, ever. She is everything that she has ever compared, she's gotten right, and you're just going to trust it. It was so shocking.
What are her credentials? What was this Melissa's credentials?
Like state lab gal.
She's a scientist. I mean,
she wasn't at the time of trial. She had retired from the state police, but she had worked in the state lab, and in terms of her background, she was like a tool marking person. They don't call it ballistics.
What was her explanation? Her explanation is that a spent round should look the same exact as an unspent round.
Her explanation was, trust me, bro. And I'm not saying that to be funny. Like they would put up the pictures and she would tell this thing that she kept saying. She's like, I don't want you to look at the pictures and try to compare it. She's telling this to the jury.
Because they're not going to look right.
It's not that. She's like, because that those pictures just represent like a microcosm of everything that I looked at and determining there was significant agreement between the round that was found at the scene and the test round that I fired through Richard Allen's gun. So I don't even want you looking at the pictures because it's not an accurate representation of everything that I took into consideration to reach my opinion. And I was like, am I in crazy? Like, I'm like, what is happening?
What did she use to come to an opinion? Like, so what are those things?
I just told you. That's it.
No, but she said that
she says she looked at them under a microscope, and under that microscope, she could see the markings, and they matched.
That's what the pictures are of that she doesn't want the jury to look at.
Right, so the pictures are of the microscopic pictures.
Right, but it's just one. It's just one little part of it. You gotta see.
So what else is she talking about that she took into consideration besides looking at under a microscope?
More images under the microscope than
the jury's not allowed to see, or the jury can't see. That was not admitted to. Like, I mean,
Brad Rosie put him up, like when on his cross, and he brought him back up during his closing argument. But man, when I'm telling you, it was a Hank Brennan, trust me, bro. Dr. Welshard, no science thing. That's exactly what it was. And I'm not exaggerating, man. And it was the connective tissue of putting Richard Allen with the girls, that unspent casing. It was the thing that ultimately got him arrested, because otherwise he's just out.
Well, there was also the other thing, because I just watched the interview with his first interview and his second interview. And where they asked him, what were you wearing that day? Right. And he said, I don't know, probably blue jeans, probably some sort of coat, maybe a hat. And then they show a picture of like a guy in blue jeans and a coat and hats. Like, okay, that's you. Like, oh, how many other people are wearing jeans that day? Like,
we're in rural Indiana.
So what was your opinion when you watched those interviews? What did you feel like?
Yeah,
as far as
what you see is that you see a guy coming in, and you see a guy, trying to give all the information that he knows, and then all of a sudden in the middle, when they start trying to pin on him, he's like, "What are you guys doing?"
Which one did you watch, Martin? There's two of them. Did you?
Right, I watched both. So the second one, he already knew that they already knew that he was suspecting. Yeah. There was a different guy.
Right.
So the second one obviously was going to be very different.
Yeah.
And he seemed pissed because why you, and this is exact. It was almost like he was prophetic, speaking about paganism or whatever, religion. He's like from the beginning. He's like, because I don't want you to guys make me the fall guy.
Right.
I was like,
I'm starting to get the vibe that I'm the patsy here. He's like, it's like, I'm not taking this. Like, he's like, I found his interviews so compelling in terms of watching them, just like with an intellectual honesty about watching them and looking at them as objective as I could be. Because granted, by the time I'm watching those interviews, I'm fully of the mindset he's wrongfully convicted. Like, that's just where I'm at. I've dug so deep into
factually innocent.
He's factually innocent. He did not commit the crimes. And, during the course of it, over our 2 years of covering it, I became friendly with Rick Allen's wife, Kathy Allen, and I asked her tough questions. It's like, I'm like, Kathy, is there any way that you think that your husband's capable of this? Because the things that you look at with Richard Allen is that, he's 47 or 48 at the times. Maybe he's a little younger. I think he was, somebody in chat let me know. I think Sleuthy's in here, but he's in his mid to late 40s. He's got no history of violence ever. Nothing in his background. He's
43.
43, perfect, because he's 48 when he's arrested. So he had just suffered a heart attack within the last 2 years. He's got a stint in there. There's been absolutely nothing in his past that would indicate that he is building up to this thing. So, when I first, and they sealed the PCA, which I know Andrea got into, which is really what drew me into this case, because it's very unusual for them to seal a probable cause affidavit. These cases are supposed to be tried in the public. It's constitutionally mandated that us, the public, get to watch and keep an eye on what our government is doing to us, the citizens. So when they sealed
that was exactly Andrea's point. Usually the party that wants everything hidden and sealed, that tells you something.
It speaks volumes. So I became very interested in the case immediately when when that happened. And then when they finally unsealed it, I'm looking at it and I'm like, why did they seal this? Like there
And
is
why did they arrest this guy?
and why did they arrest this guy? Because essentially you had the 4 girls that were out on the trails that all give varying descriptions, none of which even come close to matching Richard Allen. Let me tell you this story. The first time that I was in court, I think it was the June 8th safekeeping hearing, which, Martin, I'm just telling you, we have to have a second live. If you're going to dig in, I want to come back and I want to keep, because there's just so much.
Because what we keep doing is we keep like talking around Holder, and then we end up talking about something else. And
it's that case.
So like, maybe we should take a step back and go back to Holder and finish that thought.
Well,
so you got this coming back to Holder's. Yeah. So far you told us that he's got these really weird, odd, suspect Facebook posts about being having adrenaline pumping through his veins like never before. Yeah. It's 2:30 in the morning. And then he has some sort of posts about these runes. I think what was it you said, runes or
rune. He's got posts with the runes. He's got this mimicked crime scene video. It's not just like it's a video of 2 girls appearing to be dead in the forest
the forest.
Like as close as you can get to what the crime scene actually looked like. But the bigger thing that Allie brought up earlier, in terms of you take that in conjunction with the fact that his son, Logan Holder, is dating Abby, one of the victims, and however 13, 14-year-old kids date. Yeah. And Holder lies about ever meeting Abby initially. His story evolves.
The 13-year-old? Well, when he's 18,
when they asked Brad if Brad, because his son was dating Abby, if he had ever met Abby, he first initially lies and says no. And then at some point, the next time he's spoken to, he says, yeah, I met her one time. By the time the defense deposes him, he's met her at least 2 times. So
was he called in the trial?
No,
his name was not allowed to be mentioned.
Barred everything, man.
Oh, because third party, because he didn't think there's enough of a nexus.
Correct. They were not allowed to put. That's what I'm saying. When you can hate Cannoni, but just understand the fact that whether it was through Bowden or whatever means, they were able to get the third party stuff in both trials. Now, obviously, in the second trial, thank God they elected not to get into that, because I just felt that it clouded the issue. I thought.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I thought you were going to win the case on the science.
Let me circle back, babe, because I don't want to forget. The reason we started this was I said what we learned in that last live that I also think Andy was on was that they pulled the son from school, okay? And Abby, and I did not know this before last week or so, Abby had text Abby, right? Babe? Yeah. Abby had text the son asking him, did he want to join her on the trails the following day. So here's where I'm going to be. And I think I believe so. We've never seen it. It was a reference, right? We haven't seen the actual text, and so they pull him from school to interview him, and he texts his father, she's missing. Not Abby's missing. They're calling, like that. He immediately texts her father, she's missing.
Right. So put right
to Abby, obviously.
Yeah.
And how would he know that?
That's the $1 million question, Martin. How did he know that? It would seem to indicate that there was some kind of preceding conversation that took place. Because we were like, when we saw this, our minds were blown. We're like, okay, I'm assuming if there was preceding text messages
with his dad,
right? That because this was in the appellate brief, Allie, just so you remember where we saw that. So I'm assuming that the appellate attorneys, if there was something that would reasonably explain that seemingly not innocuous statement where the son's telling dad she's missing without indicating who he's talking about,
and how the dad's supposed to know what she's
referring to. They would have gotten in front of it. Like if there was a way to explain it, that they wouldn't be so sneaky as to try to put it in there as if the state wasn't going to be able to turn in their response, say, okay, well, they're trying to act like this is, incredibly suspicious. But they were just talking about it via text 5 minutes before. So it's not as mysterious and shady as it appears, right? So, but they didn't do that. They didn't do that. So it leads me to believe that maybe there was a comment. We don't know, but it begs the question, right? So as far as Holder, and the one thing that Sleuthy wanted to make sure that I got in, because Sleuthy did watch the whole stream and she gave me a laundry list of things that I need to talk to you about in relation to Brad Holder and Logan Holder.
How many of those topics did we hit so far?
I don't know.
And how much more time do you have?
I mean, dude, like but like in order to try to keep it on the rails, because there just is so much. The problem.
I didn't know that we're still on the rails.
Right. Well, Martin's trying.
Yeah, but like this is a different situation because there's so many tentacles.
I need a war room.
Yes,
for like a week straight, and just live on coffee and just get into the file.
Don't keep it unlocked, because if you have somebody come up and take a picture of it, you're going to get removed from your case.
Yeah.
So go ahead. The biggest takeaway is that in the first 72 hours of this investigation, when they interviewed Holder and Westfall and all these
and Elvis Fields, who I mentioned earlier about the spitting,
everybody that they interviewed. Now I know everybody's horrified and shocked about the inverse video from the Sallyport. They lost every single video from the first 72 hours. Every witness interview was somehow lost from that investigation, including the most important 70. There's shows about it. I talk about it. There's first 48. That first
48 hours isn't that a show? 48.
Yeah. Well, the first 48 it's so absolutely critical, and they lost all of it. So all that they were left with is somebody going back months, maybe years later, and trying to recollect what these people said in their police reports as to what this person said. Dude, like that is, again, it's
which, by the way,
of just how horrible this investigation was. And again, there's that parallel with Karen Reed. You have the just horrific investigation, and it took place in both cases, which has left us with a lot of questions that'll never be answered.
And brings us back full circle to the Why the Lie episode, the 6-hour episode, because what you had in there is the cop's report about what this professor said in the recording no one had heard until we just all got our hands on it. And then you got to listen to the full recording. So you could see the difference with your own eyes and ears of what a cop writes in a report about what somebody said to them in an interview and what they actually say in an interview, which he left out all the stuff that could have been remotely helpful to the defense. But
wait, stop for a second. You're talking about a recording that actually exists?
We're talking about, right. So the recording that actually exists, how that the centerpiece of that 6-hour interview was, now you're going to hear this recording of the interview with the professor. So there was,
of course, they actually have that recording?
That recording, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and then, but I thought there was no report with that.
There was no report no
report.
That was there was a second interview after the defense brought everything to light and they were asking for the professor's name. We want to interview him. They're like, we don't know who he or she is. We don't know where he or she is.
We may never figure it out.
We may never figure it out. Like 2 days later, the cop is out interviewing him for a second time, trying to get him to recapitulate his narrative.
And there you're saying the recording is vastly different than the actual what he put in the report.
Correct.
All right. Wow. So hold on. The chat's going up. So there are two points of time. There's the 70 days of interviews that were lost, but they also lost the first 72 hours. Like I'm pretty confident.
Wait, what's 70 days? So what did they listen?
70 days of interviews where they lost everything in those days that the DVR was written over or whatever they're claiming happened to it. So the chat's going nuts. They're like 70 days. Because they're the first 3 days of the interviews they lost, but there's also another period of time. I'm like, I don't know. Like, Sleuthy, what is the answer on that?
Well,
like,
the first 72 days would include the first 72 hours.
I thought there was a gap in time in my mind. But, like, again, I haven't read that part of the transcript, and I was sitting in trial. I know for a fact that they lost the first 3 days. the most important days. But then there's another
But
huge
is there a difference between maybe they lost all of the reports and everything associated with the first 3 days as opposed to the first 70 hours of recorded interviews that they're talking about? Is that the difference?
So they lost the 70-day interviews. All right. I quit saying 70 days. I think what I'm asking is, I think there's two different areas. There's Osbrook. Let me know.
Here,
Osbrook's here.
this is what Sleuthy says. Part of the 70
days, there was no
video and no audio.
Okay, but Sleuthy, that's still not answering the question with the first 3 days.
First 2 days was neither.
Are those encompassed within the 70 days? I guess is what I'm asking.
To me, when you got 1 to 70, the first 3 are,
What I'm saying, babe, is that there's 3
Sorry,
days
babe.
and then there was a gap. Are you pretending like you didn't hear me say that?
No, I do. I was poking fun. I was poking fun. I'm sorry.
It's like I'm already frustrated with the chat because I just want somebody to give me the answer.
You're a lawyer. You want an answer to your question.
I really do want an answer to that question.
Well,
Okay,
Alan Prickman says yes, the first 3 are encompassed in the 70.
Okay, perfect. All right, perfect. Because like with this case, they affectionately refer to themselves as the cranks, and they're the people that dig deep into this case, and they know it forwards and backwards, and everything that has been released post-trial in terms of the evidence, the transcripts, they've been digging in a way that the same folks in the Free Karen Reed movement did as well. So they're my resources. Like they're the people that I go to in terms of if I need any kind of information, because I cover a lot of cases. This is obviously a case that's near and dear to me that I continue, but like there's just a ton of information. And like we have people that are specifically only working on the Richard Allen case. So like again, like you got Nicole or Sleuthy Goosey, wow, and you've got All Eyes. That are like, again, repositories of information on this case where if I ever need anything, I'm typically hitting her up and I'm being like, yo, can you send me this? So
by the way, Osbrook said the first week of recordings was overwritten.
Okay. So is that different than the 70-day thing?
And All Eyes on Delphi says the first 3 days are gone, girl. Mullen was unable to restore them. So yeah, there's it sounds like there was more about the first week than about the others, but let's not go back to it, I guess.
Well, it's a kind of a big deal.
Well, I mean, they lost the point where they lost. They lost it. It was at least with Proctor, they would argue. And again, we don't know more about the Karen Reed case because there was no evidentiary hearing held about all those lost footage or written over footage or 45 minutes of missing footage of all that stuff. So
no hearings.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
And Martin, I'm sorry, but nothing about the inverted video. He just came in and was like, there were inverted videos before. Bob and I are screaming, I want you to produce one inverted video that was either shown in court, produced to another lawyer, existed in time, not just you saying, oh, that was happening for. I'm like, produce evidence, have a hearing. Can somebody find out when did you realize this and what changes did you make to address it? It was so sorry. Now I'm going off.
Okay, so let me ask you a side. Maybe this is an easier question to kind of ease up the conversation here. We'll get back to maybe. What's the flamingo reference?
That's for the cranks. They've adopted. That's not related to the case itself. That's related to the digger.
Is that like the ducks in Karen Reed's case?
Kind of, except nobody was putting flamingos around town.
So that's their logo. You're saying that they've adopted the flamingo as the cranks.
That's the. But here, babe, before
mascot?
I interrupted you, I want you to go back to make that point about the significance of hearing Turco and why that was important in terms of the defense saying that, okay, we know that they lie. We know that these investigators have lied because we have proof of it here. So now you're expecting us to take as gospel what they've written in the reports in terms of recalling what were lost in those interviews.
Right, of Elvis Fields, of Holder, of...
Because you're saying they're going back in time. They're trying to go 5 years back in time. Is that the idea?
Well,
you
no,
know?
I don't care when the hell they wrote it. They're gonna write it with the way only including the facts that they think are important.
Well, we see that from the interview with the professor where they're
Right.
not including it. And then let me just bring up this question because another question from Freedom Ring. LEO questioning RA in 17 could have been focusing on time of gifts after girls arrived. Were you there by the way 1:30 to 3:30? Rick Allen might have responded, I could have been.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree because sometimes that could be the question. Were you there between 1:30 and 3:30? Then they wrote down was there between 1:30 and 3:30. Right. So good point. Very good point.
Yep.
Yeah. And look, I mean, some people are very grateful we're covering this. I mean, grateful you're digging into this horrific miscarriage of justice. I mean, again, you're telling me I'm just hitting the tip of the iceberg now. And every time I'm talking about this case, there's just more that we're learning. And it seems like
it's never ending, man. Like that. That's the thing.
So what else with Holder? What else? Wait, so Holder and the son, and then the son texts this before the police meet with the son, right?
Right.
Holder's son.
To me, there's a nexus. He knows her. There's a connection, obviously, with his child and her. He's met her. His child knew where she was going to be, which at least gives him a line towards that. And then there's this communication where Holder seems to know what his son is referring to without even saying her.
Well, what did he respond? What did the father respond?
We don't know.
We don't know. It wasn't like all we had.
Did he respond like big question marks? What the heck? What are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah. It's. I'd love to know. I'd love.
Maybe the state will include something in their response that touches on it.
Right.
But and then there's a lot more obviously with Holder. There's like he drew a picture of was it the hanging? What is it where the leg's the wrong way and it was the wrong way in the crime scene? So the positioning of the body, if you look at it and you say that's supposed to be, a symbol in Odinism, or I'm forgetting what it is, babe, but the person, one of the victim's legs
it's like the Odin it's like the hanging Odin.
Right. But one leg is supposed to be a certain direction. And in the crime scene, it was the wrong leg. And in the picture that Holder drew, it was the wrong leg.
Yeah. Brian said the hanged man.
The hanged man. Right.
And then Sleuthy says, plus the sticks, since he had a habit of taking pics of sticks all over the woods in the shape of runes.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about Holder.
Yes.
So he would do that.
And there was a fight between Holder and this Patrick Westfall, where Holder and babe, tell me if I'm right. Is it Holder told his wife that which one of them wanted to up it to beyond animals or something like that?
I think it was Westfall, but Amber said that was so. Amber Holder was Brad Holder's ex-wife. She went to the defense after the fact, and she tells them that yes, there was a conversation that Brad told me that Patrick Westfall, who's another member of this kind of Norse paganism, Odin kind of loving group that are hanging out together. These guys were actually practicing together. And I'm talking about Patrick Westfall and Brad Holder, that these two guys had a falling out based on
Valentine's Day.
I can't.
Sorry, on Valentine's Day.
Wait. Patrick and Brad had something like romantic?
No, they're practicing this Norse paganism together.
Okay, yeah. So then what?
Right. So
I just thought Valentine's Day had something to.
I know.
Oh, it was the date close to the crime when the crime occurred.
Oh, okay.
Right. So remember, the crimes took place February 13th of 2017. So with it around that day, I don't know if it was that day or the next day, but Amber Holder, again, Brad Holder's ex-wife, claims that Brad told her that Patrick Westfall, this guy that he practices Odinism with, or Norse paganism, that they had a falling out because Westfall, the other guy, wanted to up the sacrifice. They wanted to up what they were doing. They wanted to move from animals to something else. And they had this argument down by a river in the woods. And that this falling out between these two guys because he wanted.
And was Patrick Westerfall? What is it called? Westerfall?
Westfall.
Was he ever interviewed? Was he ever contacted?
Oh, yeah.
So what's his alibi?
I mean, they don't really like alibis as to what.
Like,
Where he was
I
at the
mean, like Brad Holder's got an alibi that he was at work, but that only matters if you're buying the state's timeline. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
like you're if you're accepting the fact
and the
that
alibi is questionable.
the
The work.
alibi is questionable. But
Right.
Westfall, the dude lived in Delphi. You know, like he certainly was close to the crime scene. Like he didn't really have an alibi.
Which
how
one
did
of
they-
them lied?
How did the state nail down the timing of the death?
The phone data.
And the
phone
video,
data.
the bridge
Because-
guy video.
Because her phone, okay, the bridge guy video was just before they died at some point, but how do we know when they died? You know, so what? Her phone stopped. Well, whatever, phone was turned off, or what was that about?
Yeah, it's similar to John O'Keefe's phone data. You know, like the girls quit moving, the phone quit moving at a certain point. So they assumed that was when the girls were killed because the phone quit moving. The problem for, and again, there's just so much, man.
I mean, the other option is maybe she dropped the phone, you know, or they lost the phone. I mean,
Well, they found the phone under the one of the victims' bodies.
See, the better way to do this, because what I tend to do when I kind of like divert is because there's so much stuff, but it's important that I want to get it to you. Like what we should do, if you're interested in doing it, is I'd like to pick 3 topics. Like, no, I'm serious. Like moving forward, if you're like, all right, you hit me up and you say, look, Bob, these are the 3 things and then we stick to those topics because I feel like, oh, we're going to have about an hour and a half to 2 hours and I'm going to try to get everything in. That's why it seems disjointed. And there's just it's a much bigger case than Karen Reed in terms of facts, in terms of like suspect. It's huge.
We haven't even gotten to Ron Logan.
We haven't scratched the surface on anything.
Ron Logan, by the way.
Fine, Ron Logan.
Right, but Ron Logan, so this all, the bodies are found adjacent to this private road that goes under the bridge. That private road leads to Ron Logan's house, who also had the same gun. If they want to make this gun match thing a thing, which it's really not, had the same gun, had weird branches and sticks in his garage. Like a picture got kind of snuck in
I think
at
that
trial.
was Brad Weber.
Oh, that was, oh, sorry.
Ron Logan's property was
Oh, I mixed
where
some
the
people
girls
up.
were found. So
Right,
did Andrea kind of like go through what this particular area is?
So she did a little bit. So, but I want to let's get back to it. So there's Brad Logan. Am I getting that right?
Ron Logan. He's the property owner where the girls.
So who's the father of the boy who was going out with her? What was his name?
That's Brad Holder.
Brad Holder. Okay, I just mixed up Holder and Logan.
It's easy to do, man. That's why I'm telling you, it's easier.
So there's also a Brad Weber, right?
It's easier to try to wrap your mind around this case because there's just it's a 5-year investigation, Martin. You know what I'm saying? Like Andrew was kind of sticking with the trial. What I'm trying to do and what I'd like to be able to do, because it's important to me. This case matters to me. It's not just something that I'm covering on YouTube. I attended the hearings. I am fully invested with helping free this man. I mean, I do wrongful conviction work, and I'm adamant that this guy's factually innocent. And I want to get you all the factual evidence in a way that you can digest it. And I'm throwing a million things at you, and I can see that you're just trying to remember who's who, you know, but we don't need to do it that way. You know, it's like I said, I feel like I'm trying to rush through everything because I'm trying to get everything to you in order that but realizing you're not going to digest it because it's just too much, because it's that big of a case. It went 5 years, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. There is a huge amount of information that, and to get into the pre-trial stuff is critical to having an understanding of how this guy was railroaded, because at the end of the day, this judge denied him. You want to talk about a denial of due process. You want to talk about the denial of a fair trial. This guy was railroaded like no one I've ever seen. And it was done in the dark. Like like I was literally the only attorney in there screaming from the rooftops. I've got 2 years of lives on it on my channel where we read every pleading. I went to every hearing, and I just, you know, I got the people that were with our channel engaged, and they're like, what is going on here? But like, I need the traction from the Karen Reed people, the free care and read people, from creators like yourself that are attorneys that will take an interest in the case, that will help me get it out to the masses, because it deserves that. It deserves that. It just does. It's a case, because we're talking about somebody's liberty here. We're talking about a guy who's now been sentenced to 130 years in prison. And I believe with all my heart that he's factually innocent. His wife believes with all her heart that she's factually innocent. And, you know,
so does Andrea, and Andrea's at the trial.
Absolutely.
What about Lawyer Lee?
She does as well, I think.
We all do. Every lawyer. Lawyer Lee's not as adamant as Andrea and I, you know, but if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it is a duck. And that thing looks like a railroad job. It smells like a railroad job because it is a railroad job. If you put aside the concept of innocence or guilt for a moment, and you just look at the baseline, did he get a fair trial?
Right.
Not a chance in hell.
Right.
Not a chance in hell.
Well, look, that was the question that we started off the video. I mean, that's the question that I asked. You know, that's what we're going at for, at least initially. And then, you know,
and that's why all of the stuff that was left out, not being able to be told. I mean, when you just look at the Odinist thing, and that's what Bob was saying, like when people were like, okay, 50, the whole police force is in on it. That's how they acted with it's a group of Odinists sacrificially, you know, unaliving people in the woods.
Panic, you know,
right.
That whole thing, just disregarding it is complete nonsense.
Which is
insane. 50 people could never have a conspiracy. Oh yeah, there's a marauding band of Vikings running around killing girls in the forest. You know, it's like everything was dismissed as being ridiculous.
And that's why the professor is so important, because he gives credence to the fact that the symbolism in those woods was not, it's a given that they're runic in nature and was not just a random assortment of sticks.
And just one other thing, let me ask you a question about, just, you know, even the switching of the clothes. What is that some sort of is that symbolic in some way in Odinism, or because they switch the clothes, right?
Yeah, it's one of the mysteries of the case. Like there is no definitive answer.
Well, but they one of them was left unclothed altogether, and the other one had the clothes of the other person on. So
one of them wore the other clothes of the other person, and the other one was naked, right?
Right. So I have always interpreted that as the one that was clothed was actually the focus of the killer or killers. She seemed to have been like her body was cleaned. There was no blood on her hands. Like I was only in courtroom a couple of times, and I was shook when I saw how devoid of blood Abby's body was. And she is dressed. There seems to be some, you know, they're leaving Libby just, you know, like disregarded. I mean, people think that made Libby more the focus, but in my mind, I was like, no, this seems to be somehow more connected to Abby. She's clothed, and her body seems like it was cleaned, and there was some steps taken with her. So I don't think that that's necessarily something that is relevant to Odin. And Bob and I have always said, we are not of the mindset that this was like a ritualistic unaliving,
like an actual ritualistic,
right? Like that's what they went out there to do. But to me,
were they burning candles and chant? No, like,
I mean, it doesn't have to be that extreme, but like it definitely. I mean, if you're going into the whole Odinism thing, that seems to be the purpose of the killing. No,
it could be, or
them just putting runes on because they hold significance to them after they committed the crime itself, that the crime wasn't a ritual per se, but this is what they practice. If they're feeling some kind of way that, you know, they make an offering to Odin and they're saying, okay, well, this is what, because those symbols have meaning to them, where it didn't have to be, oh, we're sacrificing 2 girls to the gods because of whatever reason, because that's a harder thing for people to kind of understand.
Yeah, but if that's what these people believe, that's what these people practice, and you're able to show that, so then it's very palatable, very logical that they actually went out and did this killing. No,
it could have been that,
or sacrifice, whatever you want to call it.
They could have been done as a sacrifice, but the other thing Bob and I are saying is that the killers had some connection to these beliefs, and they left an indication of that at the crime scene, whether or not it was, you know, a human sacrifice per se. That Richard Allen had no history in this. He had no knowledge of this. There's nothing to say. There's nothing in his search history or background to say he would even know how to start to make a rune or what a rune would mean. That the people involved in this crime, no matter what motivated them initially, they have a connection to the meaning, to the symbolism that was left behind. They have a knowledge of it. They have a connection to it. It was something important to them.
Because if you reach the conclusion at looking at the crime scene that these in fact are not just sticks being sticks, but were purposefully placed in the way that they were, that's when you have to kind of look at Richard Allen. And again, I know I was jumping around a lot, but like I said, it's like I've got a lot of stuff that I want to tell you, and it's all critical. But like Richard Allen's 5'4". Okay, the first time I laid eyes on that man, it took my breath away on how small he was. Like I turned around, they were bringing him from the back. I was starting to tell the story about the safekeeping hearing in June of 23. They walk him out, and I could, because when you look, and obviously there's no scale when you see the bridge guy video, right? So you're looking at this eerie video of this guy lumbering down these tracks, and I'm like who's gonna figure out who's gonna take the measurements of the rails and the ties and figure out how tall this guy is, because Richard Allen is demonstrably small. Like the first thing that you would say in describing that man, if you were giving a description of him, is he's very short.
Which so no witness
none of the witnesses in that case, and I'm talking about the Rayleigh Voorhees and her crew of people, the four main witnesses that they included in the probable cause affidavit, none of them described the person as being extremely short.
And some of them described him as taller than me.
But yeah, well, I mean, most of them, like the tallest girl, I think was 5'7", said that her head came up to his armpit. So that tells you if his armpit's at 5'7", that the guy was probably so. But Betsy Blair, one of the other critical witnesses who probably got the best look at the person that they call Bridge Guy, her description is nothing like Richard Allen. She talked about a 20-year-old, fresh-faced, brown poofy hair kid that, and again, no mention of being short. Like the fact that Richard Allen stands 5'4", and the fact that not one eyewitness, none of which identified Richard Allen as they sat on the witness stand at trial, not one person said that's the guy I saw. No one. There's no in-court identification. There was no six-pack identification after they arrested Richard Allen. No one ID'd this guy. No one said that that's the guy that I saw. No one said, I think that might be the guy that I saw. So you're left with an unspent round, terrible identifications. All of them are saying he's wearing different things. If you look at the four girls, every single one of them describes him wearing something different, which is fine.
By the way,
that happens with
Can I ask you a question about the how long is this trail, by the way?
The Mona, the trail system.
This trail that they were on, and then where we saw a bridge guy. There's a trail there, right?
Yeah. So I walked it. So we parked on the other side there. So there's a large blue bridge that they call the Freedom Bridge, which crosses over an interstate. So we parked on the other side of that. We walked across that bridge. There's kind of like a beginning area. Allie and a couple other people took a different route. I took the straight trail all the way through. It was about, I'd say just under a mile, I think, to get from the beginning of the trail system from the Freedom Bridge to what they call the Monon High Bridge, which is an old railroad trestle that is no longer in use, that they have, and a railroad trestle is a bridge that goes over a body of water. So, and it was one of those things where it's a very eerie looking place. It's a beautiful trail system, but that you see these photographs of that trestle and it's haunting, right? And, and we're talking about just dilapidated railroad ties. Like half of these things were missing half the tie. But kids would cross it. This treacherous
doesn't sound like the safest thing to be.
It was 100% not the safest thing. It would be like guys like you and I would probably get down to our hands and knees and like crawl over it. That's a young person's game, like crossing that bridge, which again, there's so many things that we could talk about.
But I do
Go
have the
back to your
picture of that.
thought,
If you want
please.
me to share it, Martin, I've got it right up. The picture, the sketch that they
Am
drew.
I able to give you the ability to share with everybody?
Yep, I already can.
Oh, can you do it, or do I need to do something?
No,
on
I
my
think
phone?
it's there.
Yeah, that's
There
the
we
man
go.
of the StreamYard.
That's the sketch.
That's Betsy Blair's sketch of the person that she saw on the bridge. And the significance of Betsy Blair, she had a Fitbit. Okay, so we know exactly when she was on the trail. We know exactly when she left the trail. We know that she is the last person to see the girls. So as she's leaving the trail after she sees this guy, and she is on record saying that is 99% what the guy looked like. Now, I don't know if you've seen a picture of Richard Allen.
I have seen him.
So he's 43.
He had a nice big beard back, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
he's
know.
43. He's got basically a baldy sour crew cut. He's got very short hair
And a goatee.
and he's 43. He doesn't look anything like a 20-year-old kid. So, but Betsy Blair, the significance of her is that she is the one who I believe is the last person to see Abby and Libby alive. So when she turns around to walk and leave the trails, she saw this guy and she sees the two girls.
Good work.
So when you get to your earlier question, which was how do they know when the girls were killed? They're using Snapchat photos that were taken. There were a series of photos that were taken. Now, the picture that haunts me the most is a picture that was taken at 2:07 p.m. by Libby, who was one of the girls, of Abby. So Abby's out on the trestle. I think that Libby's probably reached the point to where they're no longer over the water, and she's reached the part of the railroad tracks to where she's on solid land. So Abby's still out there, and she takes this photograph at 2:07 where you can see the length of the bridge facing north all the way back. So you see the entire length of the bridge at 2:07. There is nobody in the frame of that picture. All right. And we're talking that when the video, chat, give me the exact time that the video's from. It's either 2:12, 2:13. Somebody will pop it up or me. So there's a period of time, and I'm talking like between 5 and 6 minutes from when that picture is taken, which, Martin, by the way, we have no idea where it came from. So when they extracted Libby's phone, that photograph, that 2:07 picture of Abby on this bridge with nobody behind her. Because remember, this bridge guy story is Abby's walking down the bridge and this guy kind of appears out of nowhere from behind heading south on the bridge. Okay, are you with me on this? Are you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
So you've got this picture that precedes it by 5 minutes that nobody's there. And then all of a sudden you have the video, the snap. We don't know if it was a video, but it got sent via snap. The video that she takes where she captures Abby walking. And then you see this ominous figure, the bridge guy behind her. The 2:07 photograph, again, where you have the length of the bridge. You don't see anybody. We have no idea where it came from. It was not anywhere in her cache. It wasn't in the snap cache. It wasn't in her photos. And we're talking, there was a Celebrate gate, gray key extraction. They can't find it. The thing was actually found. Law enforcement got on the stand and said, oh, well, we couldn't find it on our phone. We found it on the internet, on social media. Somebody had posted this picture. So we don't know what
There's no authentication then. Who's
and who even posted it?
Exactly.
Are you serious? Because somebody posted it on the internet?
Yes.
That was the authentication that was nuts. That was it. That satisfied the rules of evidence.
Yeah.
Martin, I've told you she allowed a tool marking expert to get up there and provide no science behind why she reached her conclusion that there was significant agreement and what I would consider to be the most critical piece of evidence in the case, dude.
But wait,
No,
let me just
that
chime
video
in.
is huge.
It's
Want to talk? Yeah.
No, I wanted you to finish your sentence. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, that creates the whole narrative of how this happened with bridge. I mean, that's because that already is a jump. I can already hear people saying, yeah, that was me, but then I didn't touch them. I left,
Right.
you know.
No,
There's other people on
agreed.
the path. There could be other people accessing the path after that video was taken. You know, who says I was the one who did it?
Yeah.
No,
So even
absolutely. That's been a long-standing thing. We don't even know that Bridge Guy is the guy. So
Yeah,
exactly what you're
everyone's
saying.
like making that assumption as if it's like that's definitely true. Yeah,
Right. But the other thing is, we're talking about how they came up with the time and when the last thing was. One of the big things the defense put on was that in the phone data, it showed that a headphone was plugged into the phone at like what 5 a.m. or something, and then on
no 5:30 p.m. Okay,
the following day.
So you remember back when
the following day or that day?
That day, the day
That
of the homicide, dude. So talk about one of the bombshells. So this was a trial bombshell. So none of us had heard anything about this. I've had Stacey Eldridge on my channel, who was their expert, who discovered this. And again, we're talking about just the quality of the investigation or lack thereof. And we had these parallels between Karen Reed. So the Chris Cecil was the what was who was the
search?
No, who was the cop they put up that in the first trial that I can't believe I can't remember his name.
And Karen Reed that did the Trooper Paul. Yeah.
Trooper Paul thing. So Chris Cecil is the Trooper Paul of the Delphi case, in that he was their phone guy, for the cops. So he missed this thing in the extraction, which Stacey Eldridge, who trains the FBI, who is very learned in the ways of phones and data and extractions, and she discovers that
in their own data,
in their own from the extraction that somehow they missed, law enforcement missed, that somebody accessed the headphone AUX plug-in on an old file. So remember, this is 2017. You remember that back when they had those AUX cord plugins and you used to plug headphones in? So somebody accessed it.
Wish we still had them.
Yeah, you could see, me too. You could see that somebody accesses it. And then the phone had rung, I think, less than a second before it, with the implication being that when you plugged in headphones back in the day, that would stop the ringing of the phone. I don't know if you remember that on an iPhone.
Wow.
That's factual. Like, it would stop it. But more importantly, all right, so you've got the state kind of like just pigeonholed into this death time frame of
3:30
around then, right? So
Richard Allen wasn't there.
3:32 is when they think that the state's time of death, essentially, based on what they needed. Like, and I don't know if Andrea got into the whole white van and Monica. Dude, there is just so.
But circle back
much.
to the
come back to
the stick with the AUX. So the AUX thing is accessed and is shown in the in the extraction. I think it was 5:23.
But the importance of it is it's a time where all sides agree Richard Allen's not there.
Richard Allen is home.
So go on.
So somebody's got, and this is when we're talking about Libby's phone. Okay, the main piece of evidence, the piece of evidence that solved the case.
She stopped moving. That's the time of death.
At 10, I want to say 17. Don't quote me on the exact times. Again, somebody in chat, like somebody will go. It's set at 10:17. The headphone auxiliary cord is unengaged. Okay, so this is at 10:17 p.m. or something.
Wait, so 5:30 it's plugged in.
Yes.
10:17 it's unplugged, but it never moves.
Correct.
Right.
Allegedly.
So after this
allegedly, I mean the fact that the phone's moving or not, I mean that should be data. I mean, Stacey should be able to look at that. No?
Well, unless there was, like a Faraday bag. Unless the girls were thrown in the trunk, I mean, who knows? Because I mean, it's the defense's theory didn't always, like, the one thing Allie didn't get into in terms of one of the crime scenes, but she did get into Abby and how clean her body looked. But the bigger question about Abby is, where is all of her blood? So Libby, they found like the large pool of Libby's blood, because remember, both the girls had their throats cut, so they bled out. You can see,
and one of them bled out faster, I think.
Well, one of them bled out where you can see that she bled out there, and that was Libby. Abby, there is no pool of blood. We don't know where Abby's blood is.
No, but I thought one of them hit the carotid artery or something.
Yeah, they both bled out. My point is that Libby's blood is at the scene. There's a large pool of blood where you can see she bled out. What I'm saying is to Abby, who's also her throat was cut.
Right.
Her blood is not at the scene, is what I'm trying to say to you.
Right.
Like
I mean that's also would be symbolistic of some sort of sacrifice.
Right.
Right.
I mean,
or a different
that's
location.
where you're going with that, no?
Or a different location, and the drag marks.
Oh, a different location. Yeah, I mean, because I would, could be. I mean, I understand the concept of sacrificing and where you take the blood, and you sprinkle the blood wherever you need to sprinkle it.
Right.
So, but if you're saying, oh, it could be that she was murdered somewhere else and then put there.
And before we circle back to that crime scene, because there's more about the way the bodies were positioned and how they got there, going back to the unplugging and plugging in. So they proved that a human hand touched that phone at a time where Richard Allen's not there. But then their trooper Paul Cecil, during like the break.
Oh yeah, this was the Google search, right?
The Google search during the 15-minute break. You want to talk about lack of foundation?
Right.
This I mean, when Andrea told me this, I almost ran out the door.
Dude,
I was like, if this is where we're going with this, I just at this point, like if that's what we're gonna start, like, you know what? I just Googled this on my phone 2 minutes ago, and let me talk about this in court.
And the judge allows it as if it's gospel.
And one of the things that I always found troublesome about it, like even all the obvious things that make you want to run out the door, is that it's not even about whether or not that could trigger Cellubrite to indicate it that way. Whether or not it could do something to a phone is one thing. And again, it's enough to make you walk out the door because it shouldn't be getting in a court of law. But it doesn't even touch the fabric of, is it something that Cellubrite would misinterpret and label?
It's like the steps and the incline and the decline in Karen Reed, where
exactly.
I think Ian Whiffin's testimony was that just driving on a fairly flat road can, as long as you just hold it, can trick Apple data, which who knows how much, billions of dollars they spend on this technology, that you can just trick it so easily, and make it register inclines and steps and all these types of things when you're just driving in a car.
Right. And they said they couldn't recreate and Reed. I can't recreate that spontaneous deletion. I can't recreate it. So it's the same thing. But turning back to the crime scene, and maybe Andrea talked about this, there's also drag marks of, Libby. It takes a lot of weight to pick up a deceased body and drag it to a location. Right. And they're saying this one guy was able to lift him up because there's not the full drag marks. There's just the legs were dragging, or just the. Well,
the interesting thing about there are no drag marks.
Right, there are no drag marks.
Wait, so what's the indication that they were dragged or put somewhere?
How many people did it take to do it? Is kind of where we're going with that, because one guy is not lifting up a person so that there's no
drag. Did
you
tell them about the blood flow? Because that's the significance of how we knew. Like Allie and I've tried to demonstrate this for her, because my wife's pretty diminutive. She's 5'1.5", right, babe?
Thank you. Yeah.
So
we'll just say 5'1".
Right. We'll give her 5'1". So Libby was over 200 pounds. She was a healthy girl, and both girls had the blood flow was running up, which would signify that at some point that their chin was up to. So with gravity, the blood, her head had to have been facing downwards with her chin above the top of her head, meaning somebody had her so that the blood was running upwards. Okay. All right. The problem for that theory of the state is there's no drag marks.
Right. If she was downhill or something.
5'4". Okay. Libby was over 200 pounds. And
could it have been that they just lifted up the legs after they killed whoever it was that killed her?
She was moved. That's what we know. So
right. So how do we know that she was moved and not just that her legs were just lifted?
The pool of blood, the primary pool of blood is about 6 to 7 feet from where she finally rested. So somebody physically moved her to a different location by a tree, put like a large, the one limb that they put on her, I'm talking about a tree limb, is probably 8 feet long. Like, so there's a tree limb. So the sticks they put on, and again, her body's staged. Like, she's laying in a very specific type of way. And this longer limb is laying across, like, I think it would be her left shoulder, and runs down. So both, like, you know, and I mean, the state, Martin, at trial is sitting there, and they're actually putting on witnesses to say that if you look at them in a certain way from across the creek, you can't see the bodies, trying to push the narrative that these sticks were being used to cover up the bodies, to hide the bodies.
But nevertheless, the body had to have been moved, and there's no drag marks.
There's no drag marks. So wrap your mind around that one.
So 200 pounds of dead weight that Richard Allen, 5'4", would have to have
somehow gotten it over there. Yet they find no connection forensically of Richard Allen, biologically or otherwise.
Do you want the picture of where the blood is in the bodies? Do you want me to share that?
Right. And when she says pictures, it's not like the actual pictures. It's like
I'll put it there, and you can decide, Martin, if you want to share it.
I'll put it up.
So there's that large limb that I'm talking about. So Libby is the one without clothing.
Okay.
That large pool of blood is where she was moved from. Like, so that's where she bled out. Now, when I look at this, to me, like, what I've always taken this is that her feet at the time that she was killed were facing the opposite direction of where they were facing now. Like, I think they rotated her body, because I think she bled out that way, because she would have had to have been, if it was the other way around, where her feet were down to what we would call like the southwest of that large blood spot, she would have been dragged through the blood, and the blood would have been dragged towards where she finally laid. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I think that she bled out with her head, with her face, or her feet facing northeast. Okay. And that they rotate. Point being that I think that she was moved quite a bit. And I'm talking specifically about Libby, the unclothed girl, to the point where, again, you've got to try to think about, could one man who's 5'4" have done this? And, you know, and it's like, Martin, I've been out to this trail. Allie has been out to this trail. I was out there in the middle of the day. It was, again, the trees no longer had leaves on it. So it was similar to what it would have been like in February. And it's so quiet out there, Martin. And I'm out there and I hear like a small woodland creature walking around on this berm. And it sounded like it was the size of a deer. But I'm looking up there. Point being, you can hear everything.
And the dad heard.
There are people all out on this trail. They're like, this is not like there was nobody out there this day. It's like the state would have you believe that the entire trail system was vacant when these two girls, if we're to believe the state's narrative, were killed. It's just not true. There were people. Are you telling me that one man who somehow has gained control by the use of a firearm to get them down a hill has somehow gotten them to cross a creek that at that point in time, it's February.
While Dad's calling your name out.
Winter.
While Dad's calling their names out.
I don't even know if Dad was there yet. I don't think Derek German got there till like 4. But like you've got to try
not shoot them.
And right. Does not shoot them, but that he's got control of two healthy, like athletic 13-year-old, 14-year-old girls. Okay, 13 and 14 respectfully. Gets them across what would be a freezing cold. We're talking about Indiana. You're a Michigan guy. I'm an Illinois guy. We know what winters in the Midwest are like. Unseasonably warm day, yes. The water would still be icy.
How cold was it?
That day, I think, was like may have hit 40 coming out of winter. It was the first warm day. The girls didn't have school. It was a snow day that wasn't used, so they gave the kids off the day of school. So, but we know that the river at its highest was, or the creek was, about 3 feet. So again, Richard Allen's 5'4". You've got two girls that you're allegedly controlling with a weapon, a handgun, while they're crossing a creek. So they get across the creek. There's no signs of ligature marks. So while the killer's killing one of the girls, what is the other girl doing? There's no signs that they were gagged. So do you have me to believe that
and they weren't tied up with their hands or
right? No ligature. There are no indications that they were tied up. There was no indications that they were gagged. And you've got an area where you can hear a pin drop. That was my whole point of telling you I was probably 70 feet away from wherever it was probably a squirrel that sounded like it was standing next to me. You know how it is in the woods.
You thought it was like a bear standing next to you.
Exactly. So are we to believe that neither girl screamed at any point while this guy, because at one point, if it's one guy, he has to be not paying attention to the other girl while he's killing the one. Right? I mean, that's just, if it's one guy, that he didn't do it at the same time. Right? So they had to have been killed in succession. Are we to believe that neither of the girls screamed at a time where nothing about their case makes sense?
When their throat's being slit also, I mean, that might be a time for them to scream. Right before that, if they are able to. But,
well, if you think you're a 13-year-old girl and you're watching your best friend get her throat slit, I don't even think you'd have a control in the thing.
Right.
I think
and definitely by that time, there are people out calling their names. I'm certain of that based on the timing of when the grandmother got there and then the father. That there's people out calling their names.
Yeah.
And that's after. Wait a second. So when were the people supposed to be calling names or supposedly calling their names?
I think Allie's a little off on that timeline. Like they didn't start looking for the girls until about 4. So Derek got back. So Derek German is Libby's father. It was arranged. Libby's sister dropped her off at the trails around 1:30-ish. They got that on video. And then Libby had called her dad and said, "Can you pick Abby and I up from the trails?" He's like, "Well, I'm out." And he was working. He was taking photographs from for his mother, who was in a real estate appraisal business. And he's like, "I'm like an hour away and I've got to take all the pictures of the house." So he's like, "I'll come after I'm done with that." He ends up making it around maybe late 3:50, 4 o'clock, somewhere in that time frame. But it would definitely have been, at least according to the state's timeline, after the fact. But we don't need those people. What I'm saying is there are people that were out on that trail that we know.
Yeah, those other girls that testified, right?
The girls, there are multiple people beyond just the 4 girls. Like David McCain is out there. This guy taking photographs is out there. Like we know that he was out there taking photographs, like a 60-year-old man that has photographic evidence that he was out there that day at the times that they're claiming the murders took place, and no one hears a thing. It doesn't add up, man. Like the whole thing, like everything about this.
So what? I mean, so then what? Whoever did do it. I mean, let's say you have even if it's a gang of 5 people doing it, someone would have heard something, right, at some point. So
you would think. I mean, logic dictates.
Right. So then what else? What other conclusions can there be?
That the girls were carried away from the scene, that they were brought down, that you hear the guy say down the hill that there's a car waiting because there's an access road. See,
or someone else is there silencing her. It's either more than one person. They were moved. It's one of those two
or
things.
Carried away in a vehicle that was down waiting on that access road and leaving through the cemetery entrance.
So and then they were brought back.
Right.
Right.
So Sleuthy sent me the picture but
there's still the pool of blood there in the forest.
Right. There's still the pool, but where's Abby's blood?
Right. If one was
maybe one, I mean, maybe they killed one and not the other.
Who knows? It's just like there's so many things that are unanswered. And now Sleuthy sent me the picture that this is the one that Brad Holder posted. So if you look back to the way Abby was, she had that one leg bent.
Can you pull it up a little bit? I can't see it.
So this is the hanged man painting.
Right, with the one leg bent. And it's supposed to be, the hanging man should have that other leg bent. And in the way Abby was positioned that we just saw with her one foot under, could bring that back up if you.
I remember it, but you can show it to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, show it to everybody because it's significant.
There you go. I think you got to click on
Yeah.
So, and I can
show us the point. Yeah, point there. Yeah.
Where? So, right here, how her leg is with that leg bent, it should be, if it's supposed to mimic or be symbolic of the hanging man, the other leg.
Yeah, that one right there. I see it.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to the hanging man one.
Yeah, go back to the hanging man.
Okay.
Which again is Odin, Norse paganism related. You know, it's all interrelated. Like the state. I mean, it's.
And this is what he posted on his Facebook.
This is what he posted on his Facebook.
Let's see when he posted that. February 17th, 3 days later. And we talked about Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day was February 14th. That's when the wife said that Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall got in a fight in the woods by a river because he wanted to do more than just, he wanted to step up there.
This is also, again, a suggestion of if you hang somebody like that, all the blood would come out of them, right?
Correct. And run. That's what I was saying. Like, run down the face.
Well, that's what Martin's saying, that if somebody did this, the blood would be important. And that's why it's not there, that they had something beneath to.
Right. You're saying because her blood.
Collect the blood. Yeah.
Her blood was draining that, and it was through that way. Wow. Wow. I mean, this is it's unbelievable,
dude. We've only scratched the surface.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna have to do this again, but I think I really
to. I
think I really have. Do you have all of the pre-trial, like like briefing and orders? Yeah,
got it all.
Okay, and this is all in that Google Drive that Sleuthy has.
My homework for you, should you choose to take it on, is I want you to start with the Frank's memo. It's the best place to start. It's really.
I would love to start from the beginning and go through the end.
That's and that was the most significant, because there was a couple of hearings and we didn't really even get into, because I would love for you to read it so we could start at the beginning, because the way that they ended up incarcerating and torturing this man in a prison for 13 months in solitary, and how he got there is significant, because they essentially did it. You want to talk about, and I know you're big on due process, as we are. And this is a situation wherein they went in on a trust me bro thing in front of a judge who then recused himself because of the bloodlust surrounding the case, which is how Judge Gull was appointed as the special judge. And he's like, I got to dip out. But in the interim, they walk in, and I'm talking about the law enforcement, and say, we got to put him in a prison, a real secure prison, because we think somebody's going to kill him. But there was no actual threat. This was just like, oh, well, he's accused of being a child killer, and we know how they're treated in prison. So there's no actual threat, and they didn't believe that Richard Allen was a threat to any of the other inmates, which are the two requirements that are necessary for putting a safekeeping moniker on him and being able to transport him and hold him in a prison as opposed to a county jail. So he's then sent to the prison, and this is the last thing that I'm gonna talk about, because I want it to just fester in your mind while we figure out when I'm going to come back. So they put him in this Westville, which is the most secure prison in the state of Indiana, and they put him in the most secure cell in the most secure pod in that prison, and he is guarded by prison guards that three of them had Odin patches on their state issued uniforms. All right. And this is like it, and this came out, and it was,
you're allowed to have those Odin patches on state issue.
No, like when it came out during a hearing pre-trial, they then had to remove him. And then one of the guards doubled down, and it was in Odin We Trust was the patch. Dude, it's unbelievable. Like, so these are the actual guys that are guarding Richard Allen, and he's tortured, and they cut him. Like, when we get into the whole prison and the coercion and the confessions, it's a whole thing. And I know Andrea got into Monica Walla, the prison psychologist that was treating Richard Allen a bit, but there's a lot there, man. But like, starting from the beginning and working our way through, you're going to be stunned. You are going to be stunned It's just how the procedural posture of this case went down, man. Like you're gonna be like, dude, I've never seen anything.
Well, you started to say the double down after they had to take the patches off.
He got the tattoo, like some kind of Odin tattoo on his face.
On his face, because they made him take the patch off.
Yeah, it's everything about it is insane, man. Yeah. Everything about it, like, and it's like there's just way too much smoke for there not to be fire. That there's something bigger going on here. I don't know if people are being protected in terms of that town. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the case. All I know is that the man that they have sitting in prison didn't do it.
Right, and that's from all the people that were actually following this case, like you and Andrea and apparently Lawyer Lee, which I don't have so much interaction with, but that's what seems to everyone's coming down with. So that's why I like to get a fresh look at it. As you know, I like to make my own opinions, but
100%.
you know, from just some of the rulings that you've told me, I mean, there automatically has to be a new trial. I mean, no questions asked.
You would hope.
You know, so I mean, if a shred of what you and Andrea have told me is accurate, a new trial is warranted, you know. So
all of it's gospel. And to go back to your question that you asked probably an hour ago in terms of why they didn't get into it in the appellate brief, you know, it's limited in terms of the number of words. They petitioned the court to ask for an additional 10,000 words, which was granted, and it still only scratched the surface. It's still like one of my friends who's a brilliant habeas lawyer is in chat. His name's Michael Osbrook, who's worked very, very hard on this case and who's got a 50% win rate with habeas petitions, which if you Google that, my friend, you will.
That's really
mind blowing. So the guy knows his stuff. But you know, I mean, there are so many things that couldn't be addressed because of the lack of space. I mean, they take that word count very, very seriously at the appellate court level. So, you know, they picked the 5 or 6.
Yeah, I know you have to, like, have you done appellate work yourself at all?
Allie does. I don't really do it.
Because, like, I know in Michigan, you've got to have a certification of how many words are in there.
Yeah.
Right.
So it can't be over the word count. That's
it. So, you know, I mean, they got in there what they felt were their strongest things, and you know, we'll see where it goes. But you know how it is. Appellate work it's hard to win an appeal, especially in a case, especially with 2 little girls, beautiful little girls lost their lives.
Yeah. I mean, you can have and just understand that just for the audience. I mean, you can have really such egregious rulings, and sometimes the appellate courts will bend over backwards to figure out a way to uphold, you know, the convictions and things like that. So. But I do want to end with something that Allie has shared with me. So I'm going to let Allie take it from here, but I'm going to show it to everybody, and we'll end with this for today. But, you know, it feels like it's been 2 minutes and it's been 2 hours and 15 minutes.
I know.
So let's pull this up and then we'll just say our goodbyes.
Okay.
So this is when Bob talked about us going to the scene, there was this memorial left on the bridge for the kids. And I just wanted to end with something to honor Abby and Libby, and, you know, keep them in the forefront of our minds. So this is something that was left there by just a local child. And it says, "Dear Abby and Libby, you never met me. You never interacted with me. You never heard of me, but you've guided me. The circumstances of me hearing about you girls weren't what they should have been. However, the legacy and joy you both brought to this world is something I will always aspire to bring in y'all's honor. Love, devotion, wit, brains, and happiness is what the world needs right now. So I might not be able to give you both the true justice you guys deserve. I can use your virtues of love, creativity, kindness, athleticism, baking cookies for life for Abby, and crafting for Libby, and crafting for life for Abby. Love, live, and light up the world like the girls did. And this world will have incredible times ahead. May both of your beautiful souls rest in peace with much love and vengeance for justice, Sam."
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for giving me your time, Bob. And it's nice to meet you for the first time. I think this is probably an appropriate case that we should be meeting on for the first time because, you know,
I'm
just
thankful you're doing it, Martin. I really am. It means so much to me. Like we keep trying to get the creators that have been heavy Karen Reed to take a peek at this thing, and you're really the first person. And I respect you. I've watched your videos. You're a very bright guy. You're an excellent attorney. So it means a lot to, and I want you to do exactly what you said. I want you to form your own opinion on it based on what I give you. Whatever you tell me you need, I'll send over to you. And as you can afford the time to look them over, I want you to do it. And then, you know, let's start talking about it, man. Cause I think it's one of those cases. I think it's going to hit you. It's going to hit you deep, and you're going to get the feeling like, man, this is something that I want to dig into.
Yeah, you know, the cases that keep you up at night are the cases where, you know, you really believe the guy's innocent. Yeah. And, you know, these are the ones that you just, you know, it just tears your heart apart. I think this is what caused a lot of people to have interest in the Karen Reed case because, you know, they felt the evidence was really strong in her favor and they were disgusted with the prosecution. Yep. So, you know, and this is what we're here for, you know, like it's one thing to cover a case where, you know, like a Donna Adelson type of case where it's interesting. We can explain some legal concepts and, you know, people are interested in it. So we'll do it. But this really hits home. I mean, this is really deep. And this is why, as I'm hearing more about the case, it's making me feel like I need to do a much deeper dive and, you know, bring this to the attention of more people so that we can have, you know, we can eventually free him, you know, if he's what you're saying, factually innocent. And I know that that's a tall order for any lawyer to say, because I'm very careful with saying, oh, this person is 100% innocent. You know, I say, I talk about legal burdens and we talk about how they haven't met it or things like that. But, you know, you're very strongly coming out in this case. Andrea also. So, and
I'm the same way, because it's one thing to not meet the burden, right? Like that doesn't necessarily mean the person didn't do it. That just may mean that the state wasn't able to meet their burden. In this particular case, and I'm the same way. I'm not running around saying everybody's factually innocent. Far from it. You know, this is a case to where when you start digging in, man, and you're looking at it with intellectual honesty and you're just saying, man, this thing does not add up. And then when you compound it with how the procedural process went, you're going to be stunned, truly. And, you know, moving forward, it'll be better. Like, you know, you could say, look, man, I want to kind of like hone in on these two specific things. And then we'll dig into those and kind of move through it in that way. And I think it'll be very enriching to people. I think it'll get people motivated to want to get involved, because when you see the power of the Free Karen Reed movement, and it's powerful. It's a shame to see what's going on with it now, but like when it was happening, it was incredible. I mean, to see that kind of just devoted passion for a case for justice and a thing that we care so much about, which is this, you know, this criminal justice system that we have in our country. It's emboldening. It's heartening to us as attorneys to know that the public cares like that, man. So, you know, like I said, I'm thankful that you took the time to talk with Andrea first, to get your feet wet in it, and I'm equally thankful to the fact that you invited me on to continue to have the conversation and fill you in. And like I said, I know I was kind of all over the place, but like I always feel like this when I'm trying to get somebody hooked into this case. I want to throw everything at them. And I forget that it's so much that it's hard to process, because there's so many moving parts, so many names, so many things, you know, it's hard to digest it all. So I think, you know, I hope I gave you enough, and I hope I gave the audience enough that might not be familiar with it to be like, man, this thing requires a closer look. You know?
And and don't take this as a slight, but I just subscribed to your channel. I'm not as active on, like, this is Bob's thing. So I just want to take a moment to remind anyone that's, you know, coming over from our channel to take that second and subscribe to this channel and like the live so it can get out there. And I appreciate you, Brother Counsel.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. All right, we'll see you a little bit later. I'm just going to hang on for a little bit and say hi to the super chats. But thanks again for coming and spending some time with me. And I guess I should say, go Bears, right?
Go Bears. Hey, and give us a follow over on Defense Diaries podcast channel as well.
That's right. Of course. Definitely subscribe to Defense Diaries and go follow them on Twitter. Okay. So, guys, have a great Sunday. Thank you very much. All right, so I just wanted to get to some of the super chats here. I didn't mean to ignore you, but I don't want to take up the time, precious time that Bob and Allie were giving me. So just want to thank was this Quinley 121 becoming new member. We've got here from, and I'm having trouble seeing the actual names here, but it's Bob needs a conversation with Brother Counsel's brother, Solomon, on law enforcement and civil rights. The four of you would have a great show. That's true. Everybody loves Solomon. Solomon always has great insight. Unduly noted. Question, BC, how many kids do you have? I have 6 beautiful children. Thank you for asking. Okay, we went through some of these so we can skip ahead. Oh, I forgot to ask this question. I'm sorry. I put it up there for a moment, but then we just got distracted, and this was a question for Bob. Bob was doing the summer camp for Richard Allen. So there's something there with the summer camp. I guess I'll have to ask him about that later. We've got Kim Neighbor, BC. I'm so grateful you're looking into this horrific miscarriage of justice. Thank you very much. And yeah, we got to look into this case. I mean, it sounds absolutely crazy and nuts. What went on in this case. I mean, if Karen Reed brought you in and what was going on in that courtroom and some of the rulings that were coming out from Judge Cannoni, you should definitely look into some of the rulings here, apparently. So here is another. Thank you very much for Eagle Eye. Know yours. Thank you for covering. Thank you very much for that. Dr. Jen Toxic. Thank you, BC, for looking into the case. It is a lot. It definitely is a lot. I'm noticing that, and I really have to actually read everything. You guys know that I like to read stuff, so I've got to actually read it. Poetic Justice, our Poetic Justice. Remember Libby and Allie, memory is a moral act. Another from Poetic Justice, Abby and Libby, another $10 in their memory. Mo Esquire, and I always wonder if when you put Esquire next to your name, I'm assuming you're a lawyer. So is this, yeah, Ma Esquire. So gifted 5 Brother Counsel memberships. Thank you very much, Ma Esquire. Sister Counsel, can I call you? Pro Gamer. This needs more light. Thank you all. It's true. It does need more light. So that's what we're trying to do. Gary Kidson. Please do a deep dive of this case. A series of you covering the pretrial motions and every day of the trial with the transcripts would be awesome. It would be. And look, a lot of it comes down to you guys. If there's enough interest in the case, there's enough interest in that as opposed to other cases, then that's definitely something that I want to give to the people. And, there's other cases going on as well. But, I mean, this is a case I think people should be interested in. So, by the way, Mo Esquire says, yes, I am a lawyer. Richard Judge makes Cannoni look like Thurgood Marshall. And that's what everyone's saying. It's exactly what everybody's saying, that this judge makes Judge Cannoni look like a saint. So, so I definitely want to. I have a very strong interest in looking into this case. I know it's old. And that's the thing. It's a little bit older at this point. And, Defense Diaries and Andrea Burkhardt did such a great job covering the case. Maybe people already heard about the details of the case. They don't need another person looking into the case. I may do it on my own because I want to look into the case. But, I mean, in terms of bringing it to you, if you guys are already tired of it because you hear about it from Bob, then, you can let me know. But it seems like we do need some more eyes on this case and some more analysis. So I definitely might do that, but there's some other things coming up that I also have to do. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. And it seems like it's a big undertaking also. Like I said, I need a whole week of just unplugged. You got to put true crime on a pause for everything else going on, all the Karen Reed stuff and Turtle Boy stuff and everything else that I'm covering. Curry Richards is coming up and some other cases that are trials that are coming up that people are interested in. If everything was just put on pause for a good week or two, and I'd be able to actually dig into this case and just solely this case, and then it would make my life a little bit easier. But we'll see. We're going to do our best. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We had a pretty good crowd today, so we appreciate all you. And as my fellow co-host said, or guest, I should say, definitely subscribe on your way out, like the stream so we can get the word out to more people. And have a great Sunday. If you're watching football today and if your teams are on the field today, hope they do well. My team is not, because what happens with the Detroit Lions, they did not get in. Kristen from Manhattan, our good friend, Kristen from Manhattan, who's been with the channel for a very long time. Thank you very much. Brandon Banfield's trial is starting on Tuesday. I thought it was starting tomorrow. I thought Brandon Banfield's trial. Oh, no. Paul Canario, I think, is starting tomorrow, if I'm saying his name right. It's the au pair murder trial with the judge who presided over the Depp Hearer trial. Any interest? I do have interest in this case. Yes, there's a lot of interest I have in this case, Brendan Banfield. And in fact, I put out a poll on Twitter that if I would only be able to cover either the Paul Canero case or Brandon Banfield with the au pair murder, which one should I try? Which one should I cover? I think the Brandon Banfield is winning right now, so I may cover that. Amber says, would love you going over main pretrial motions with us. Okay, so we may do that. We might do that. Maybe I'll put out a video and see if anyone, watches it, and we'll take it from there. But yes, there are some interesting trials starting tomorrow. This other case, Paul, and then I think Brandon Banfield is just jury selection. So we may have a day or two that I can cover the Paul Canero trial. So we'll see. We'll take it day by day. So again, thank you everybody for joining. We will see you all next time. Enjoy your Sunday. We'll see you tomorrow.